Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 253. As always, to get time for people to join us, including hopefully one or two guests to join me, I'm going to start us off with a tune.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need. To wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wild. Your new God's sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace. Fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for the sword, what's love that heed and folly? Bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, our loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to this, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall weigh your gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly profit laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come down to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age with dear bought wisdom, the judgment of your peers. Take off the white man's burden through all the thankless years.
And that was, of course, the excellent Chris Gard. If you like good music, please go and check out Chris Gard's YouTube channel, and you can also follow him on X, where we are also live as well as on YouTube. Good evening. How are you going, William, Granville, and Mitch?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Iron Duke. Thank you for inviting me back on in this new year.
Oh, you're always welcome. This is actually our official stream of this year. We did a history stream on Wednesday, and we did an AMA stream last week. But this is the first official Splendid Isolation stream of
I was going to say, very good history stream as well with yourself and Bean and Aaron Hook and uh, I guess you could say sort of covering the sort of Pax Britannica sort of age, that 100-year period between Napoleon and the First World War.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed that stream. It was quite interesting. People were asking if we're going to do the period from 1914 up to today, and I said perhaps we might, but I think if we did, it would probably have to be probably 2 or 3 streams, and each one would be more depressing than the last one as they got more and more recent. So.
I would have to dig out. I would have to dig out my old when I was doing my Major General Richard Hilton. Some of the epic quotes and lines, particularly around the Kyrgyz plan. But I don't know if we could actually go there on your channel on YouTube. Around that day.
If it's historical, you probably can.
I mean, I guess if we're quoting him.
Yeah, I was just going to tell people in the audience, in terms of historical streams, you guys should check out Bede Britannia, who was on the history stream, because he's doing a stream with Apostolic Majesty at the moment about Germany and Turkey, basically, I think.
Oh, the Ottomans during the First World War?
Yes, the Ottomans and the Germans in World War One. And he's got Apostolic Majesty as a guest, so that'll be worth checking out after this stream, of course.
I will say AM is a lot more generous regarding Kaiser Wilhelm than either of us are.
Yes. I think AM is reasonably sympathetic to the Germans in World War One. And I'm reasonably sympathetic to the Germans in World War One myself, but I don't think Kaiser Wilhelm was the brightest tool in the shed, to be honest.
I'm sympathetic towards the Habsburgs, to be honest. Even though and what happened with Austria and the various states that befell the Austrian-Hungarian Empire.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that it was their blundering reply to the Archduke being shot that really started the whole damn silly nonsense off. That was the beginning and the end of Europe as the main place in the world.
Yeah, it's like, I know Lavada. I don't know if anyone's heard of him. Some Bosnian fella. Who does history videos. He did a video saying why Austria-Hungary was right to invade Serbia or right to start invasion of Serbia.
I'm sure he's not biased there.
Yeah, obviously. And I mean, in terms of the First World War, it's like I'm sympathetic towards the Russians and the Serbs, which I don't know. I mean, I would also say I used to think like our entry into the First World War was quite unreasonable, but I look back in there and go, of all the countries who entered the First World War, I'd say we're one of the least objectionable in terms of our war aims, like containing the Germans.
Well, my argument would be that the sensible British position would have been armed neutrality, and if we were going to join the First World War at all. First of all, we should not have joined in 1914. We should have done what the Americans did and they were in the war and made money in the meantime by selling weapons and what have you to the French or whoever. And the other thing, of course, is that when Britain did eventually join World War One, we shouldn't have raised a mass army.
I'm coming around to the view, but I think we ought to do conscription. I think, because it's like, you take our small professional armies, I look and go, it actually limits us, because you have because I was reading some of that book that Bede recommended, about No More Napoleons, where it talks about how we have to do reordering, or we have to do, what was the other one? But basically, the whole thing about Congress of Vienna, Concert of Europe, where we have to work with other nations to safeguard peace. Where had we had like a big army akin to like Russia or Prussia, we probably would have been able to muster more instead of having to rely upon the good of others.
I don't think my objection to a mass British army is that Britain's never had an enormous army, and apart from during World War One, and that's how you get enormous casualties. Basically, if Britain doesn't raise a mass army, then we don't get 1 million Commonwealth dead.
Right, but I'd also say because it's like you take the Germans, for example, in the First World War, they were able to get massive loads of men mobilized in such a short space of time because everyone had been drafted.
Did it do them any good, Mitch? It didn't.
I mean, the thing is, Britain is a maritime nation. Germany or the Prussians are not maritime. They are predominantly army. They
Yes.
are the greatest armed forces in the world. That's why, you had Prussian officers training the Americans during the Revolutionary War. You had the Prussians were known. They even had Prussians in, I think, Catherine the Great's sport as well. Training up military. So, Peter the Great and people like that. So they were known. Sort of this great sort of military land army sort of tactics and traditions. I mean, I've been reading we talked about, I want to do at some point the 7-Year Wars, particularly the capture of French Canada. And if you actually look at it, there were more sailors. I think it was 13,000 British sailors involved, and you had 9,000, regular infantry. And so, in many ways, the capture of Canada was very much down to the Royal Navy. I mean,
I would say, like, it was, for example, 7 Years' War. I mean, people say, well, because everyone knows about conquest of Canada, but few people like really compete that the Battle of Quiberon Bay was really what won it for us. Because one thing that happened, the second order effect of that was basically maritime insurance rates of the French went up massively to a point where supply ships couldn't really sail between France and Canada anyway because no one would insure them. So and
the 7 Years' War is often described as the First World War because it was.
Well, it was referred to. I think Charles Oman referred it as the Great War as well. It was still referred as the Great War.
It was in the late 18th century, but it was really, in many respects, the First World War. It was fought all around the world, and then of course the Napoleonic Wars were, from Britain's point of view anyway, also pretty much a world war. There were actions in Cape Town, there were actions in the Far East, all over the place.
The islands off Madagascar in
Cape
region,
and Mauritius and what have you. Absolutely.
And it's I mean, I don't know if Tipu Sultan was explicitly supported by Napoleon, so I don't know if you kept that as Napoleonic Wars as well.
He was supported by, it wasn't Napoleon, it was the French Republic, so it was before Napoleon seized power. He was supported by the French Republic, and the support that they received. If I remember, I think this is where you go into the realm of fiction. I think in the Sharp novels, there are actually like French soldiers there. That wasn't the case. I don't believe there was any French there. I think you had the French, French version.
You might have had one or two French mercenaries, perhaps, but I don't think there were any.
What was the French equivalent to the East India Company? Was it the French company?
Yeah, there was a French East India Company, and I think they still had a small enclave at Pondicherry and one other place whose name escapes me.
Yeah, I think it was through the East India, their own company, that they supported Tipu Sultan, particularly with cannons and weapons and stuff. But I mean, it makes sense. It's kind of like how we used Tecumseh during the 1812 war to, raise up the Cree and other Indians in America against the US
Yeah,
US
Tipu
Army.
Sultan's got. If you go to the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, there's his famous tiger, and it's a toy, and it's a mechanical toy that also makes sounds, and it's a tiger eating an Englishman, and that was Tipu Sultan's idea of fun.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Wellesley was nearly killed in a skirmish, as we talked about in one stream. He was one of the few times he actually got a bit too close to the enemy during a scouting outing, and
Yeah, I believe he got slightly lost. He was in a taupe, which is kind of like a grove of thick trees, and yeah, he got a bit lost and almost got ambushed.
yeah, and
yeah, he sort of pulled like a Washington when he got. Remember the story of Washington? He was shot, and his coat was riddled with musket balls, but none of them hit him, and it was a bit similar um with Wellesley. He had like tears and bits on his clothing, supposedly from being shot at and what have you.
Oh, Wellesley was very often shot during his career. I mean, particularly in the Peninsular War. He was never shy of danger. He wasn't a stupid commander. He wasn't trying to be a subaltern and leading cavalry charges and what have you during his later career. But he was very often under enemy artillery and even musketry fire. So that wasn't too unusual.
yeah. I know it's not too. I know there was I remember the Battle of Versailles, which Wellesley says was his best battle.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, which because you get people who have this idea that the Indians were all like they didn't even have gunpowder when we came across them. I was like, well, no, they did have gunpowder before we came across them. And
the
the idea
the Mughals,
yeah, because it's like because I know you got the Sikh Empire who were trained up by Americans and Prussians and French, I believe, and then
French, Americans, and Italians mostly. Mitch trained the Sikhs.
I thought it was Prussian. I got the mistake with Italian.
Iron Duke explains why they lost their empire so quickly.
Yeah, not well. Actually, of course, the Italians mostly fought on Napoleon's side in the Napoleonic Wars, and so it's pretty natural that you'd get quite a lot of.
Yeah, I'd say minus was it Sicily and well, it was just Sicily, wasn't it? Naples.
The Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. But most of Italy was more or less pro-French, and so it was quite natural that French officers and Italian officers went off and were mercenaries in the Punjab and what have you after the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah, I know. Like, I don't know if I'm trying to think. I don't know if it's the Italian national anthem or the Polish national anthem that mentions like Napoleon in a very positive light in terms of like. I know, but to be fair, both those countries were very pro Napoleon, weren't they? So
yeah, they were. The Poles in particular were. Napoleon had a quite extensive Polish legion who fought for him.
Even to Poland, Napoleon is seen as a hero. He's still seen as the liberator of the country.
I can't stand the bastard myself, but I mean, that's just me.
It's like Poniatowski. I mean, he got killed at Leipzig, didn't he? Because a lot of the Poles got killed in Russia, and what was left of them got obliterated in Leipzig.
Yeah, he got killed, I think, because he
Yeah.
drowned in the river, didn't he? Trying to get
Yeah.
across after they blown up the bridge too quickly. But yeah, it's how are you going, Alan? I think you might be muted, mate. I can't hear you at the moment.
How about now?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Now I can hear you.
Good
Well,
Christmas.
welcome to our historical discussion. We're just talking about. Well, we started off talking about the First World War and kind of got diverted a bit, but whether Britain should have gone to war in 1914 and if we should have raised the mass army, I would say no to both of those questions. But there we go. I'm also sympathetic to the idea of Britain actually having an alliance with the Germans rather than the French and the Russians. Because
that takes two to tango. Well, I would say.
No, absolutely. The Germans would have had to have been much more sensible. But I mean, had that come around, it would have been an excellent alliance because it would have meant that that alliance would have been pretty much unbeatable on land and at sea. But yeah.
What about now though? Like, would, let's say, should a based Britain today be allied with Denmark in the interest of keeping Greenland in the hands of Denmark?
For that, yes, I agree. I think that it would be against British interests for the Americans to buy Greenland.
Because I was listening to over the last couple of days. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I also, on this particular topic, I do agree. And I think the casus belli that Trump is putting out there is weak as hell.
Yeah, no. I mean, look, I don't think Trump's going to invade Greenland. I'd be very surprised. And if he did, I think it would be the end of NATO, basically. Because
I think he'll try and buy. I think
if he actually invaded the place, that would be the end of NATO entirely. But if he tries to buy it, then it's up to the Danes to say no, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the other thing that should happen is that the NATO and the Danes should say, look, we're willing to spend more on defending Greenland, because that's what Trump's excuse is. He's saying it's a weakness in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, I've seen America.
You could send more troops there. I mean, I'd be more in favour of British troops being sent there than I would to the Baltics.
Yeah, I've seen like Americans make the excuse of, oh, well, Europe's turning Islamic, so we need to take Greenland. It's like, well, Denmark's actually one of the sensible countries at the moment, and Trump is just shitting on that country for whatever reason, I don't know.
And Greenland itself, I mean, I saw one of the most ridiculous things saying, oh, yeah, Greenland is in the grips of becoming an Islamic caliphate, and it's like, fucking hell, like Greenland is like 95% Lutheran Christian, you know, like Church of Denmark, Church of Greenland, or whatever, Lutheran Christian. I mean, the thing is, you can make arguments for. And we'll probably talk about, I don't know if we'll get onto it, but the sort of new Monroe Doctrine or something, but you just don't lie about it. Like, I understand why America wants it, because it's in their remit, hemisphere remit, all that sort. I get it, but don't sort of lie about it in the sense of, this sort of slop, Tommy Robinson-esque talking point of, like, it's going to be Islamic Caliphate literally tomorrow.
Yeah, I think the Americans have got more Muslims in America to worry about than Greenland has, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, it's mostly Inuit. It's mostly Inuit, as
Dearborn,
far as I can work out. Like, Greenland's mostly Inuit.
It's quite funny.
Yeah, it's
mixed. You got like mixed race and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing about it is, I mean, Denmark is a NATO country. So if Trump is worried about the defense of Greenland, why not go to the Danes and turn around and say, look, I want to build 2 extra bases there? And I'm pretty sure the Danes will say, go for it.
Am I being retarded in thinking some of this goes back to the Chagos Islands, though? Because I kind of feel like America's looking at Greenland and thinking, well, hang on a minute, the Europeans are getting a bit soft with their former territories, and they're just giving them away to any Chinese or Russian
Certainly
sympathizer.
could be. Yeah,
Um,
certainly
Yeah,
could
sure.
be.
But I mean, Trump could have vetoed that deal with Chagos Islands.
yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So even then, like I don't see any valid reason for it. It's like someone saying, "Well, we'd be worried about Greenland being taken over by Russia," and I'm like, "He's got American bases on there."
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, you know,
Mm.
unless the Russians want to start World War III, they're not going to invade Greenland, nor are the Chinese.
If I remember correctly, in the 60s, the Americans did try and store underground, like in the ice glaciers or what have you, nuclear missiles, a nuclear missile base or something like to that effect. But it couldn't be done because of the foundational weakness of the sites they'd be building on. There was the only thing it was used for was basically like a normal military base or port or what have you.
Yeah, I look, as I say, I think Adam is right, and personally, my view would be that Britain should be anti-America taking over the Danish colony of Greenland. It's Danish; it should stay Danish. But I do think also Trump's got a reasonable argument that more should be spent on defending it, and so. You know, I suspect that what will end up happening is that the Americans will end up expanding their bases there. And I think Trump, being Trump, has just come out with this, oh, yeah, we're just going to take it over stuff. And it's a negotiating position, you know.
I'm going to try and push this. Oh, sorry, go on, Mitch.
I was going to say, it's just going to, it's just like what Trump did with Canada, where he just ended up resurrecting the Liberal Party from what was going to be a 0 seat thing for them. Likewise, it's giving all these Euro crap libtards like a means of appearing patriotic by saying, "Oh, we're standing up to the bully in America," blah blah blah.
Mm. Yeah, it's kind of with the whole Canada thing where he was doing the whole "we're going to take over Canada," and it just like turbocharged the boomers in Canada and spelt all sorts of trouble.
One thing I will say now, I don't want to draw it onto this way, but when that happened, and I watched that because, of course, it was Pollier who was the leader of the. I don't know if it's the Conservative Party or whatever the party they call it over in Canada. Maybe it's, but the non-right wing party. He put out I think it was like a TikTok or some sort of video around that same time where he talked about the history of currency and coin clipping. I am not kidding you. There is somewhere out there, if someone can find it, there was a video on coin clipping. And then the next thing, Trump was kicking off about, taking Canada. And because Pollier was tied with the whole like MAGA, because he talks about make Canada great again, all that sort of stuff. And then suddenly Mark Carney came in, and then it was like, as you said, like a bait and switch. Liberal Party had a thumping great majority.
Yeah, it was foolish. It actually ruined the real right wing's chances in Canada because, as Armand said, it made all these moronic boomers do, elbows up and all this bullshit.
Oh, for the coin clippers.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna try and push this analogy out even further now. Go on. Is there an instance in which a base British government can be pro-Ukraine?
I don't think so.
Do you not think though that
I mean the trouble the trouble is, like, this week I've seen clips of the front line of Azov battalions, just like they're flying just straight up like World War II German flag, just in its like no Ukrainian symbol iconography with it, just a good old swastika. And the problem is all the pro-Ukraine people. That's like the cognitive dissonance that you have to. I mean, it's still they haven't really sort of confronted yet, basically.
Well, I mean, like, to be honest, like, you only had to go back. What was it, like 3 years prior to the engagement, to the invasion, and you had you'd have Corbyn on Question Time banging on about Nazis in Ukraine. And he's like, "Oh, we're supporting these people, and we shouldn't be." And now all the Corbyn followers are all flying Ukrainian flags.
I know,
But-
it's pathetic. It's
but-
pathetic.
But isn't I mean, also let's be honest with ourselves. Isn't like if you look at like the Azov Battalion and like an intrinsic part of their sort of, I suppose you could call it vision, is that they want to make the Ukraine. It doesn't really work because you have to say the, but they want to make the Ukraine
But
Yeah,
the
go on.
trouble is, why do they allow themselves to be governed by a Jew? Why do they allow
But
themselves to be governed by
like-
a Jew?
Yeah.
That's the most obvious thing.
Yeah, but they, the implicit thing is that they want to make it sort of a Ukrainian state, and they want these Russians either in line or out of there. And it's like, I mean, there's sort of like contentious issues with that and this, that, and the other. But isn't that also an argument we're going to have to wrestle with, let's say 20 to 30 years from now, where the inevitable happens and we're having to clean out, let's say, Bradford of, the ferals? We're going to have to wrestle with this contention that, like, they're going to be saying, "Oh, well, we've been here for 100 years at this point," and we're just going to have to say, "Yeah, we don't care. It's actually just us or you, and you're going." And that's just the bottom line.
A bit different, though.
A little bit different, yeah. But
because Eastern Ukraine is ethnically Russian and always has been. So we're not. Bradford has never really been part of Bengal. So from that point of view, it's not the same argument. I mean, the second thing that's going to happen is that I think you've got to be really, really, really stupid now to not realise that the Russians are going to win that war.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it might take them another year. It might take them another 2 years, but they're going to win. This is actually the thing that's always really pissed me off. I've never really had a dog in the fight or cared either way, but I kind of also look at the situation and just think one of the problems with the Ukraine conflict in Britain, right, from the British regime perspective, is it does tend to really highlight just their complete inadequacies. Like, they probably actually could have had some really good opportunities there to actually really hammer the Russians if that was their intent, but instead they've just like talked a load of bollocks whilst continuing deindustrialization and like not realizing that like guns and tanks are made of metal, like just the most insane sort of retarded disconnect between like political reality and like their own inane political You mean
theory.
Britain needs a steel making industry?
Yeah. Bloody some industry would be nice. A bloody composites industry would be a good step up, but no, can't even have that.
No.
Ataman,
Oh, yeah,
Ataman, I'm going to be my inner Tory. I'm going to do my inner Tory expression. That's communism. You're talking about industry. That's communism. That's disgusting communism. We can import it. We need to have a functioning
we just need a
bar
service
and
economy.
hotel society. How dare you?
The Chinese will
That's
keep giving
communism.
us. Yeah. The Chinese will keep giving us our steel, even if we're fighting against their allies. It's
Yeah. There was a guy on Twitter. There was a guy on Twitter who was writing this long effort post about how the Russian army is a much better position than the British army at the moment, and all these NAVO types just bombarded him, going, "Oh, you're shelling for Russia here. Oh, you got snow on your boots." I was like, "Oh, fuck off."
Yeah.
I believe the Russians are going to take most of Ukraine up to the Dnieper River, and I also think they're going to take Odessa. I really do.
Maybe me wanting a working metal and maybe even a working chemical industry is asking too much. You know what would be nice? Just the basics, like an energy sector would be nice. If we could actually just produce our own electricity and maybe produce just a little extra that you could supply these European powers, so they didn't have to be reliant on the Russian proxy gas and oil that they're getting through places like India. If you were actually of the mind, like our regime claims to be like so militantly anti-Russian, you'd think they would be interested in that sort of stuff.
No, I mean, I pointed this out well before Christmas. If the British government was at all serious about all its anti-Russian rhetoric, then you would have seen some speed up in building the latest Royal Navy warships that are on the stocks at the moment. There's been nothing. Nothing at all. Not a single thing. It's just bullshit. It's hot air.
Yeah.
I mean, at the moment, we're talking back to this, whole thing with Trump and what's happened in the last week, is you still in a time. I heard the most ridiculous thing of how we cannot allow Trump to we can't allow the world drag back to a position where might is right, and it's like she's sitting. This stupid bitch who said this was sitting in London, surrounded by columns, marble. I mean, bitch, how do you think London was built? How the fuck do you think European capitals was built?
Well, I mean, the whole thing that got me on.
Cold War's
is,
over, guys. The Cold War is no more, and the Cold War was what gave us that period of relative peace. I mean, there were always plenty of wars going on anyway.
Yeah.
The Americans were doing their stuff in Vietnam. Britain was pissballing around in Oman and also in Malaya and Borneo. There were always plenty of wars going on anyway. The Falklands is another one. It was just that there weren't wars going on in Europe. That was the only place where there weren't wars going on, but that was purely the threat of annihilation by nuclear weapons. And the thing that amazes me is that the current generation, or many of the current generation of Western politicians, seem to have forgotten that stuff is still a distinct possibility. If a big war broke out between NATO and Russia, the chances of civilization being totally ended and the human race being nearly totally ended is actually quite strong.
Yeah. Aaron James Hook in the chat said, to Ataman's point, a based British government could very easily use supporting Ukraine as an argument for rebuilding the armed forces and reindustrialization. I have actually wondered that. Like, we often think about how like people like Blair and that like outflank the right, the conservatives from the right, and how like people like parties like Reform fail because they don't do enough. They still try to appeal to the centre ground. I do sometimes think that on this particular point, even though it's not, again, something I particularly care about or I'm interested in, that you could have someone who's a bit of a firebrand, like outflank the NAFO types from the Ukraine side, but with stuff that actually like makes fucking sense on paper.
I think the problem is, Adam, and I entirely see your point. And yes, if you'd have done this 3 years ago, maybe. But it's too late now. Like, Ukraine's lost. We're actually seeing the Russians getting more gains quicker now, despite what every Western propaganda outlet comes out with. The Russians are continually gaining ground.
Yeah, it's like a wrong time we were saying send the Bombardians there as like a Foderati. It's like that's one thing, like because a lot of his NAFO styles were like, oh well, we bleed in Russia out, we bleed all their men. It's like, no, what they're going to do, they're just going to bust in loads of like Africans and Indians, and they're just going to draft them into Ukraine and just use them as cannon fodder. Because if they're just going to go, okay, we're going to fight a war of attrition, we're going to do it with people we don't give a shit about, and they'll be the Indians and the Africans.
I think the other thing is, I put a video up on the Discord, Mitch, and it's a European dude talking to an American dude, and this European bloke who I sometimes follow, he thinks this whole Ukraine thing is bullshit, basically, because it is. And he's just pointing out that whatever happens at the end of this war, Ukraine's going to be much smaller than it was. Most of its industry is going to be gone or destroyed. It's going to have lost a good deal of its agriculture, and there's going to be millions of Ukrainians immigrating into Europe. Now, his point was, well, how does Europe, particularly places like Germany, cope with all these millions of Ukrainians moving into Europe? And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, well, I would have turned around and said, but, Britain, for example, is still getting hundreds of thousands of third world immigrants coming in here, or even worse than Ukrainians. So,
but don't you know that actually at the current rates, net immigration is going to hit zero by September? what are you going to complain about then, bigot? You know, they've already airdropped 1 million Somalians into all your towns and cities that aren't going back home, according to these people.
And that's also partly because so many people are leaving Britain. And I believe is that not true as well?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's literally what they say. That they're like, oh, yeah, what are you going to complain about then? Well, the ones you already brought in, dickhead, obviously. Like I still think back to that James O'Brien bit on LBC where he's like, don't be bought in by these people's lies. They're gonna, just because you stop immigration, they're still gonna see brown people in their town and they're still gonna be angry about it. Yeah, we are actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I think Steve Laws is mostly in the right of it, and remigration is essential. I do also think, if you bring in the right laws, such as you don't get any sort of welfare payments for 10 years, say, and there's limited access to the NHS and what have you until you've been here 10 years. You can't possibly become a citizen until you've been here 10 years at least, which is what they do in Japan, by the way.
I mean, with the migration stuff, with the remigration stuff, and I know that that's been a sort of debate with people. The problem is, if you forget about the whole remigration stuff, the ultimate problem, which cannot, and it will have to be confronted, and it is being, and because it's the forefront of everyone on the right's mind, whether you agree with the framing of it or disagree or don't like the dialectics of it, whatever, is that fundamentally, it's the question of demographics in this country and the sort of risk of extinction of the British race. That's his fun. If we're being honest, that's just fundamentally where everyone's mind goes to.
You're right, AI. But I mean, what I was trying to say was just that if you bring the proper laws in place, so that you turn off the tap of the Gibbs, a lot of these people will self-deport. They won't all do it, but quite a lot of them will self-deport.
I mean, there is laws. I mean, first of all, Rupert Lowe, I know he put forward this law, and it's been rejected. It was like banning all foreign nationals from able to stand in Parliament or in UK elections.
That's a sensible law, yes.
And also voting elections. Now, I always thought if you're a foreign national, you couldn't vote in the general election. I don't know if that's changed.
I think it has changed.
Well, I don't know when that was, because last time when I was canvassing in the general election, but bear in mind this is back in 2019, so it's quite some time ago now. Foreign nationals couldn't vote unless they were from the Commonwealth or Ireland. That was given; they were the only exceptions. But
but the Commonwealth does also include like India and Pakistan. So
yes,
oh yeah, true.
I mean, it might as well just be all the immigrants anyway. Funny enough, Russians have to really jump through some hoops to get a vote in this country.
Yeah,
they suddenly recognise the threat of foreign diasporas having sway in elections. Then,
but India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria, etc., those guys could all vote anyway because
Well, tell you what, we'll talk about the Russia question, Labour, when we have a Russian grooming gang. How about that?
Actually, guys, even fucking Somalia, which was never British, is now part of the Commonwealth. There was a little British Somaliland, but it wasn't what is now called Somalia. It was just a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's ridiculous in on itself.
But yeah, no, I do think you could bring in a lot of laws, particularly around welfare and the National Health Service and all this shit. I mean, I'm in favour of a thoroughgoing reform of the National Health Service anyway, which you could do at the same time. But if you stop these foreign nationals from getting unemployment benefit, child welfare benefit, all that kind of stuff, and you limited their access to the NHS, some of these guys would just self-deport anyway because they're here for the Gibbs. They're not here because they love Britain.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I mean, did you see the conversation between Millennial Woes and AA?
No, I haven't watched it yet.
I've only watched the first 20 minutes of it.
I did. Yeah, I watched it all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bit in it where AA, I think, does rightfully say that, like, if you turn off the welfare, like, a lot of these people will still stay because their quality of life, even if they're working a shit job, is still better than it would be back in whatever shithole they're from.
But many of them, Adam, don't work at all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those
I mean,
guys, if they weren't getting benefits, would
I-
have to leave.
But the thing is, I think probably about a year ago, where AA made this point in a tweet. I remember saying, well, what you would need to do is you need to stop them, because what you have is you have say you have an immigrant man or woman, they come over to this country, they'll work like in the care sector or wherever, or the NHS or what have you, and then they will send most of their wages back home to their family, which means that that is where you have the incentive, and they don't spend it in the local economy. What you need to do is you need to basically ban that people who work in who are foreign nationals.
You ban overseas remittances is what you mean.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. And now that I remember I spoke to an economist who I interviewed when I think it was with the Wellington Project, and I actually ran that by him, and he said it'd be very difficult to. He said it would be difficult because, number one, the treasury probably would stop you in your tracks of doing that. But he said ultimately that would be the number one incentive to.
Well, how about you don't ban remittances, you just tax them at 90%.
You could do that.
If you send 100 quid to Somalia, the British government takes 90 quid of that.
Let's tax it 110%.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, Hammond. Yeah.
You have to pay £110 to send £100 back.
Something like that. Something like you could do something like that, and that would really help.
Yeah,
there was another one that someone mentioned. Obviously, you remove all the benefits that immigrants get in terms of housing and all that stuff. All of that should go. So that if any sort of housing rebates and what have you that poor people get, all of that should be removed from immigrants. They don't get a penny. And you would find a lot of these immigrants, even if they don't piss off back home, will piss off to another European country which has a better benefit system.
But the point I was going to make, though, is also that we actually, I mean, we were just saying a second ago about how, like, if you look at net immigration, it involves British people leaving, but we actually have a very high turnover of the immigrant population. It's actually one of the things that's a little bit unique in the UK is that quite a few of them leave as well. So we funnel some in, then a bunch of them go home, and then we funnel some more in. And
we could also, Adam, and I'd be in favour of this. You could also say to people who do want to return home, we'll give you a lump sum payment, but for each of your family, but you're not allowed to reapply to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I'd kind of rather just use that money to fund our own version of ICE, which we'll call NICE.
I get what you're saying, but there is things you could do. Now, people in the chat are saying, but that's not going to get rid of all of them. Of course it's not. But if you could get rid of, let's say, 25% of them, that's a big start.
Yeah, the remittance tax is also funding NICE.
You
can put a big sign up, like, for every £1,000 that gets sent back to Pakistan, that funds 2 NICE agents kicking down your granny's door.
No, absolutely. Listen, I believe in remigration. I really do. I think I wouldn't go quite as far as Steve Laws. I think there are some mixed race people who I'd let stay. The likes of Ben Habib or David Curtin, I wouldn't chuck those guys out because they.
Well, I wanted to actually pivot from this into the Birmingham NHS fraud thing, but actually, can we talk about the Steve Laws thing real quick?
Yeah, go for it. I want to try and get Steve Laws on this stream. By the way, I'm very much in favour of that.
I did watch the entirety of the Adam Goldstein. I don't call him
Andrew Gold.
Andrew. Sorry, Andrew Gold. I don't call him
Money Pincher
Goldenstein. His surname is Goldstein. He changed it to Gold, but it is Goldstein, and he'll be referred to as Goldstein until because that is his name. Sorry, that's your name, buddy.
Yeah, kind of like David Polden. I mean, he chooses to tell on himself, which is weird. But I'm actually more interested. I was quite interested. I mean, the Goldstein interview is good, right? Because it's like, and this is the thing. So you get the Sargon video, the Carl Benjamin video comes out afterwards. Like, he got the call, he has to come out and against Steve Laws, and he does this bit, and I was more interested in that, to be honest, because he ends up doing this bit where he's like, oh, he ends up looking like the right-wing equivalent of Greta Thunberg, and it's like, right, but Greta Thunberg got 90% of what she wanted. Like, she was successful for that side. Like, you just had a bunch of moderates, and this is something that actually Millennial Woes brings up in that conversation. He says, like, you can have these radicals out on the fringes. If people say, oh, don't you condemn this guy, you just go, that's not my position, but you end up folding around to being very close in the end. And the funny thing is, I didn't want to bring this up on Twitter because it's short form and people are going to hate this example, but Douglas Murray used to do this with Tommy Robinson. People would say to him, do you condemn Tommy Robinson for his Islamophobia? And he'd go, that's not my position, but I understand that he's reacting to this thing and I don't blame him, and blah, 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 blah. So you absolutely can do this. We don't need to sit there and like police our own radicals. That's ridiculous. And it's like the thing with Steve Laws, and I don't want to say this because it feels like you're revealing the magic trick, and it's not a magic trick, but it kind of feels like you're doing that to people on the right we're all disenfranchised with everything. But like, his thing works because he's a true believer, because he has this position and he adheres to it and he believes in it. And when he says, oh, he's the Greta Thunberg of the right, he's kind of right. He is like, he's our sort of like torchbearer for our extreme, for our fringe. And that's why he's effective. And this idea that you've got to sit there and sit him down and go like, do you actually mean this? And he goes, whoa, no, not really. I actually think like no, that's not how this stuff works. Like, and it feels frustrating because you've been watching all these people who are now criticizing him, and they've been around for years saying like, oh, the problem with the right is we don't have true believers. We don't have any real faith. We don't have any authenticity. The left has all this stuff and we don't, and that's to our detriment. And then the moment someone actually comes along who sort of fills in this role, they all want to like start like trying to like look behind the curtain and trying to find out how the magic trick works and start wanting to put on the levers and sort of deconstruct it all. And it's like, for fuck's sake, like, you need to understand how this sort of thing works. And and he
says himself, Steve Laws himself will say, look, you aim for Mars and hope you can land on the moon. So I think Steve Laws is excellent. As I say, I'd love to have him on the stream.
I do think that the particularly like the I don't believe like Andrew Goldstein or any of those people, or that guy who has like some Ghanaian friend or his or whatever he's called.
William Liam Tough.
Yeah, that's him. That
foot long. He's fucking Ghanaian mate. You telling me my Ghanaian mate ain't Great British? Well, no.
Yeah. That sort of. Well, I won't use a. Yeah. Anyway, that person. Number one, I don't view them as right wing. I think they're just disaffected liberals. I've always hold this thesis that with the rise of woke, it just means that you got people who are liberal who just don't like the sort of silliness around trannies and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're very much, and even Tommy Robinson is basically that. He's not a traditionalist. I mean, in any well, for one country he's a traditionalist, but for everyone else, no, he's not. And I do think that with Laws, because he is a father, I believe he's married, he's got children, he works, still has like a normal job and everything. He's not like someone on the right who tends to be a bit eccentric, a bit weird, a bit of an oddity, has sort of maybe bizarre foibles about, because I will be honest, most people on the right, particularly sort of, are a mix of, you have like your LARPer, but then you do have like your oddballs. So there's a lot of oddballs on the right. I'll be the first to admit this, who have very strange behaviours and do things in a very odd fashion. I mean, even people who we respect, people like Bowden, he's great orator, great thinker, great mind. His personal life was I mean, you would just it was a lot of problems there. There was a lot of
A mess.
problems, and it was a total mess, absolutely. But that's part of like the insane genius, the insane genius trope. People who tend to be geniuses tend to have very, very poor, either social skills or life, or a messy life, all that sort of stuff. He isn't that, and the thing is, they can't really attack him on being. They can't call him an incel. They can't call him. I mean, the amount of times you see people on social media that will say, "Oh, he's like I think he's been called like an incel virgin or something like that several times, and it's like, yeah, I've gotten married with children, or something like that. So it's a bit difficult, but I mean, I would say I don't think Steve is like some sort of you know, he's not he doesn't fit that trope, right, in that regard. And so it's hard to attack him on, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
For them, they find it difficult. They can't attack him for being odd or bizarre. Now, well, if I went on one of those things, yeah, they could probably do a lot of the sort of attacks and everything. But yeah, he's a normal bloke. He's a very, very normal bloke, very down to earth. Maybe he's not like the greatest. Maybe, I mean, the only thing I would say was Steve, and maybe this is when he does speeches, he does have bit of charisma, but he need personally, I would recommend he goes to um and this isn't me, but this not being horrible. If he can find a circus performer who can teach him stage presence, that would go a long way.
Do you think that's really his position though, his job? Like, I just kind of don't. I actually almost think that him not being the most charismatic guy out there kind of lends itself to what he is, what his sort of position is in the
He's an average bloke.
ecosphere.
He's an average bloke.
Well, I'm not. Well,
most
he's not though. I mean, he
ordinary-
is. He is. His positions are radical compared to the average bloke, but
I don't know if they are though. I mean, I think there's a lot of ordinary average Brits out there who would 95% agree with him.
I mean, the amount of people in Britain that think that you now have to be born in Britain to be British, which is still a very soft position compared to Steele was. It has doubled in the last 2 years, which people go, that's not enough. That's pretty monstrous, actually, when you consider the propaganda machine that we're up against and how sort of indentured a lot of these positions have been over the last sort of literally 80 years. So the fact that it's now like 1 in 3 people, up from being like 1 in 5.
And also like the self-identification of British, of English, has drastically dropped over the decades, and identification of British has gone up. I mean, and it's, I mean, every now and then I'll see on Facebook some like Joe Street interview in West London or somewhere like that. And they'll ask they always do ask the English person, is there such thing as English culture? And you have like some like toe rag or something they find who'll just say, oh no, there's no such thing as English culture, we stole all the cultures and all that sort of stuff around the world. And the thing is, that constant demoralization, yes, Steve has a purpose, but the thing is, we need, I think, and this does go back to what Bowden said. When he was asked about this years ago, he said you need someone who can, because the people in this country are calling out for not so much like this grand strategy, but actually permission and sort of mental strengthening against this. You need someone who can project strength in like the most and be quite fanatical. I mean, dare I say, you need well, I think you know what I mean, but you need that sort of person. That sort of almost like the sort of a magician with the crowd.
Need a few grand wizards back.
Mitch, Mitch, did you have anything you wanted to say about Steve Laws and his positions and this kind of stuff?
I mean, I concur about Steve Laws. I just don't think he's that charismatic. He could do with improving in terms of how he debates. Because you got Andrew Golding, where it was a matter of you look at it and you go, he's not a guy who reads books, is he? He's not the kind of guy to have like a clear, concise. Like if you asked him to define what English means, and you would say, well, people have been here for over 1,000 years, and of course, and then you can say, well, does Forge count as English because his ancestry is Huguenot, and Steve Laws is the kind of guy to get tied up like that easily because he's not a guy he's not erudite and stuff like that.
I also noticed that on the interview because he was and maybe this is down to because I don't think this would affect us if we were in that position, but you had Goldstein who said so only like the people who are of Anglo-Saxon origin and the Normans. Now, of course, we would turn around and say, well, listen, retard, only about most 10,000, probably even less than that, Normans and who all nobility settled here. I mean, the actual demographics of post Hastings England, Norman controlled England, didn't hardly changed at all, and it had little to no impact. Bearing in mind amongst the nobility, there was intermixing between the Anglo-Saxons and Normans anyway. But unfortunately, Steve did. I think Mitch is right in that regard. I don't think he's that clued up on history as such, but he is on contemporary politics. He does seem quite clued up. And the thing is, you have to remember, he started off as researching legal boat crossings from Calais years and years ago before it even became it was being reported in the news.
Well, I think you've also got to point out that because of Steve Laws, remigration has now reached the mainstream. Mainstream media are talking about it, and that's almost entirely down to Steve Laws and other people around him. So from that point of view, I mean, people like Elon Musk and the guy from Restore Britain have retweeted Steve Laws.
Well, Aaron James Hook in chat said you need ideologues. I mean, this is ultimately just my position: is that I don't like if you look back at that Goldstein interview, as you say, like Goldstein's trying to tie Steve up in knots and do this, that, and the other, but Steve just keeps going back to that message discipline, back to that line, back to that position, just over and over and over again. It's not. I'm not really sure if he needs to read more or if he needs to be that charismatic. I kind of think he like his position works the way it is, but maybe I don't know. Maybe he could still do a better job of some of those things.
I mean, I think he's just he's doing a great job. I mean, this is the point. And on this channel, we don't punch right anyway, because it really is foolish. You will notice the left do not attack each other over relatively minor differences. And I just think Steve Laws is doing a brilliant job, and I would love to have him on this channel. But I, even if he's never willing to come on this channel, I still think he's doing a great job. He is getting people talking about this stuff, which inevitably helps move people in our direction.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It is Steve Laws who coined the term remigration. It was from him that term comes from.
I don't know specifically. I know they do the remigration conference on the continent, but
yeah, no, I don't know that.
I know Martin Sellner's big on it, but I don't know if it came from Laws or Sellner or
because I thought it made, but even if it did come from this is the problem. Yes, Elon Musk and others are retweeting it and using that, and I have no doubt that at some point in the future there'll be a British politician that will use that term as well. The problem is and this is where it comes down to.
Rupert Lowe
you-
already uses it, William Grenfell.
he does it? Okay,
Yeah,
but
he
the
uses
problem.
remigration quite frequently when he's tweeting and stuff.
But the problem is, we know Steve Laws. When he says remigration, and I'm assuming, 'cause I think he did coin the term, or someone in his orbit coined the term. It basically means, um, making sure, reversing the demographic change in this country. That's fundamentally like the reality. But the problem is remigration, as we know, and as it will be hijacked, and it will, maybe not by Tommy, because I know him and Tommy are having a feud at the very public feud at the moment, with Tommy threatening to beat him up. But you'll see people, um, who will utilize that term and only apply it to the Islamists. They won't apply it to, the millions of Africans who are Christian or whatever, or Hindus or Sikhs or what have you. It will only be applied to the Islamists, and this will be a problem because it's watering down the message, and that's something that even Laws has. I think he, in a Twitter space, he talked about it, how, and this is where maybe he needs to get a bit more organized, or there needs to be like an organization around it to actually controlling the dialogue, controlling the terms, because he'll put remigration out there, it'll be picked up by Musk. But as we know, the American system is entirely in bed with, Israel and their dual citizen friends, um, and it will be used as a term to just kick out, undesirables who, you know, as we have seen in America, where people have been deported very publicly. It's not been because they've called for the death or hate, because they hate white people in America. It's because they've said something anti-Semitic. Um, that's disappointing. And it's same in this country. They get animated when the only time they get animated is when someone says anything anti-Semitic. If they say anything about fuck what British people or something, no one seems to give a shit.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I
I mean,
mean, we
there's
know
another
that.
thing, another topic we kind of missed because we weren't streaming over the Christmas period. Obviously, this Al Fatah controversy with the Egyptian dissident coming in. I mean, that was like a perfect example of that.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
he
Everyone
makes this
got
series of
everyone got animated over him because he, said something anti-Semitic, and nobody even really talked about the sort of,
William, didn't he also say anti-British and anti-white stuff as well as
Yeah.
yeah,
anti-Zionist?
he did, but everyone focused it on that, and that's why I didn't even really engage with the story, because I'm so sick and tired of this hyper focused. I mean, it's basically everything is Israel first now, in the conversation on the right, and everything is it's been developed in, oh, look, this person's attacked the Jews at one particular point, even though he's talked about how much he hates Europeans. It doesn't matter about that bit. He's just attacked that one particular group. We now need to focus on that, and that's basically what the conversation. And it's just, I mean, um, it was just I just avoided that story, and
Well, the thing is, as well, even when he apologized, the apology he issued was specifically for the anti-Semitic comments, but the anti-Jewish comments. But he actually sort of like in that apology, sort of like mockingly addressed people complaining about his anti-white comments, where he's like, "Oh,
yeah.
people online are trying to stir up and taking me out of context, and this, that, and the other."
But the thing is, it feels like, and I don't know if this is just me, but it does feel like that, a lot of the people on the right, particularly some of the people that we know and we've followed, have gone back on themselves, because about 5, 6, 7 years ago, people were we all of us were pushing back against attacking Europeans, but attacking white people and attacking British people, and now it's like whenever that's like said or done, it's just been totally ignored. I mean, there was one point, people were saying we need to make. I mean, hell, I remember when people were saying, yeah, we need to have like a right wing version of cancel culture. If you're effectively attacking or denigrating Europeans or European civilization, you need to be really coming hard on that. And it's now everyone just focuses on oh, did they say something anti-Semitic? And it's all these sort of like talking heads, whether it be in the GOP in America or various conservative parties or the Liberal Party in Australia or wherever. I mean, hell, I even saw in Australia, Iron Duke. There was another story I meant to ask about. Somebody wore like a Joy Division shirt that's caused like some sort of spurg out as well about anti-Semitism. I mean, like, what's that about?
Well, this will be related to the recent shootings at Bondi Beach, I would imagine. I don't follow this stuff. I just don't watch the mainstream media, full stop. But yeah, I mean, look, the one thing I would say to you, William Granville, is that, this particular stream, and this is episode 253 of this stream, if you want to watch our streams, our position has not changed. I mean, if anything, it's got a bit harder over time, I think. But it's certainly not gone back on itself. We don't constantly talk about the JQ because, to be fair, that is more of an issue in America than it is in Britain or Australia, for that matter. I'm not saying it's not an issue in Britain and Australia, because of course it is, and there is a huge amount of Zionist influence. But on the other hand, we're not Americans, and we don't have to talk about it constantly, which is what Americans kind of have to, because if you want to know who's running American foreign policy, you have to look at a certain Middle Eastern country. But we're a British and Old Commonwealth channel. I wanted to address this because people were asking in the chat about the Commonwealth. Now, in the 19th century, the only Commonwealth that got talked about was the Old Commonwealth. And that was, in those days, Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and later on South Africa. That was the Old Commonwealth. It was basically the white Commonwealth, to be honest. And that's the only bit that this channel cares about. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the rest of it we should just get rid of, frankly. If it's not a British overseas territory, and it's not a country that's full of Anglo-British type people, then no, fuck it. We shouldn't have anything to do with them.
I mean, the thing is, Iron Duke, you are right in the sense of none of your positions have changed at all. I mean, none of you have done any massive political 180s, really. I mean, the only time I think all our positions probably changed in unison was when Reform, when they right back along when they kicked people like Bear and stuff out of the party. All our attitude went from being somewhat minor hopeful to actually, what the hell is this, and just sort of seeing the reality of it. What I would say though is the problem is the reason why. I'm not going to talk about the JQ, but the sort of more the Zionist stuff. Why that conversation is becoming more and more prevalent is that because of the foreign nationals that we have in the old Commonwealth countries, like Canada, like Australia, like Britain, particularly in Britain, that is the global conversation at the moment. And because all the citizens are globalized, it's difficult to avoid it because it's like there every day. It's there every day on your socials. It's there every day in the conversations.
Yeah, listen, I'm not disagreeing with you, William, and I'm quite happy to talk about it fairly frequently, and I think we do. There aren't many episodes of this stream where we don't mention it at all. On the other hand, I'm very conscious that because we're one of the relatively few British and Old Commonwealth-based streams, rather than being an American-based stream, we don't need to just completely do what the Americans do on every damn stream they do. And I understand why the Americans do that. Don't get me wrong, I do.
Yeah,
but the position is not quite. It's not quite the same for us. Yes, they do have a lot of influence, but it's not as overwhelming as it is in the US. And Britain has other, probably more urgent problems in terms of the stuff that we've been talking about, that Steve Laws talks about. I would say if Britain could actually do remigration on a large scale, that would solve many of Britain's problems. And then we can look at other things like, I don't really want the RAF defending Israel from Cyprus. I really don't. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, if the Israelis want to fight the Palestinians or anybody else, go for it, boys. But use your own guys, not ours.
Well,
You know?
I mean, on that far point, I'll sort of draw a line under that. What I would say is, and I have pointed out before when I talked about that, because I know you don't want to punch right on the street, so I won't mention his name, but the person who I view as the ultimate grifter in the British right at the moment, beyond Tommy Robertson, but the other one, the other young Zoomer fella. Um, he, through my investigation of that, you do have like the likes of Israel Aid, which is the NGO funded by Israel, who exists off the coasts of Greece and parts of Italy, who have been encouraging mass migration from Asia and Africa into Europe. And while we are Britain, I am aware that we are all European, and I don't want to see Europe, because if Europe is swamped, then it makes us more on a fortress setting. And so I at the end of the day um I want to see effectively Europe as collective, even if it's collectively stronger, and it's particularly its borders, and not only of its borders, but among themselves as well, because this fundamentally this is a problem that you do have like these. I mean, we talk about like George Soros. We all know about these sorts of things, but it is these charities and NGOs which are really causing damage to our country behind the scenes.
I do think you're right, William. But I remember talking with Atman, certainly, and probably with you actually, 4 years ago about some of these Zionist NGOs. So it's not something we haven't addressed. I mean, it's like I say, it's not that I don't want to address it. I just don't want it to dominate every stream we do, because I think if you do that, you just sound like we're not really a British stream. We're an American stream.
Well, I mean, I'll make the extra point, which is that we also have lots of Anglican religious organisations that also do the same thing.
For sure, mate. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
look,
true.
Let me just do a little bit of channel admin, and then I know Adam had something else he wanted to talk about, and he also told me earlier that he can't be on all night because he's a working man. So a little bit of channel admin, guys. If you want to support the stream, please hit that like button, that thumbs up button. That really does help. Takes a second, doesn't cost you a penny, and it really does help the channel. Also, if you want to support the channel, you can do so via Entropy, and I see we already have 3 Entropy chats, which we will address towards the end of the stream. But if you want to support the channel, or you want to ask a super chat question, which we will address towards the end of the stream, you can do so via Entropy, and the link for that is pinned at the top of the chat.
It's one of the Entropy super chats from Gerin.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah,
there's one from Gerin, there's one from Rong Tao Wu, and there's one from Rod Three Trees. Quite a generous one from Rod Three Trees and from Gerin also. We will address those towards the end of the stream, guys. And if you've got anything else you want to ask the panel, or you just want to support the stream, you can. The reason I'm doing that is not that I'm the world's biggest grifter. It's because I actually spend quite a lot of money now on StreamYards and also on X on Twitter, in order that we get more coverage, which is giving us more viewers, which is good. And hopefully, one of the objects of this channel is that young people in Britain and Australia and what have you can realize that they're not the only people who think this. There's plenty of other people who agree with them.
They don't eat much, but that harem of Japanese women does cost Duke money. So
yes, that big harem of Japanese women that I wish I had. Yes, I don't have a big harem. I don't even have a little harem. So there we go.
You get. I say when the day that Iron Duke gets to call, when he gets a free plane ticket to Japan to kiss the Shinto shrine.
Yep. No, I'll when I start advertising that, oh yeah, I'm going to start a GoFundMe so I can go and investigate Japanese culture. Yes, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, to be honest. But I'd have to take Mish as well. So
I will be honest, and I don't know why, but I find something I find the Japanese quite unsettling. Maybe I'm possessed by a soldier of of the Pacific War or something. I don't know, but I find something quite unsettling about the Japanese. I don't know
I,
why.
I I follow them more from when they were British allies between 1902 and 1922, when they were very good British allies, by the way. And also before that, when the Brits were building most of their warships and all this kind of stuff, and the Japanese Imperial
Yeah.
Navy was learning from the Royal Navy. And also, they've got some pretty based policies. You've got to be resident in Japan for 10 years before you can even apply to become a Japanese citizen, which is a rule I would bring into Britain immediately.
I mean, don't get me wrong. One thing I like is I feel more comfortable with the the sort of Japanese samurai society that to be honest more so than the modern Japan, which of like these cyberpunk-esque anime cat girly sort of stuff.
Yeah,
That for me, I don't like it.
yeah,
I just don't like it. I find it
I,
weird,
I
and
agree.
I don't like it.
I agree, William. I like the older Japanese samurai culture and all that kind of stuff. The sort of stuff that you can go and listen to Mitch talking about on Apostolic
Yeah.
Majesty streams. That stuff's interesting.
Maybe it's the ghost of Yukio Mishima who's trying to reach through to me. You know, it's sort of thing. You know, this samurai
William,
warrior
I
spirit.
had a question for you, and that was, why do people keep calling you a goat? Has it got something to do with your avatar?
A goat? Is people calling me a goat?
In the chat, people keep calling you a goat. Not this evening, but on other streams, they have done so.
The greatest of all time? I don't know. Maybe it's my my whiskers on my portrait, or maybe it means greatest of all time. I don't know. I like to think it's a positive thing. But
Yeah, you should always look on the bright side of life, for sure.
it, I know that goat means greatest of all time, so maybe I don't know. I don't know. I'm assuming if it's about my beard, then fine. I'll go with goat. I don't mind. Your
Fair enough.
insults mean your insults mean nothing. You all
Yeah,
look at
no,
the chat.
listen. If I took notice of insults, I would have died years ago, mate.
Yeah. William Goatville. Yeah, there you go. Your insults mean nothing. You're all peasants. You're all peasants. You mean nothing to me.
Someone's saying it's an internet meme meaning masculine, so there you go.
Oh, is it?
I have no idea, mate. I have no idea. That's why I asked you. Adam, what was the other subject you wanted to talk about, mate?
Well, I'm not really sure if I can go into it as a full subject because I haven't really had a chance to look into it as much as I would like. But basically, it's this Midlands NHS story where they have essentially given £40 million to a company based out of like a residential address in Birmingham, run by a like a white English woman, presumably, who's part of her local Rotary club. And they've given her like £40.5 million has been funneled to this business registered at this residential address over a certain amount of time to bring in 700 junior Pakistani doctors from Pakistan to work in the NHS at a time where we've got like an unemployment crisis within the NHS specifically for doctors, because like none of them can find jobs under this new lottery scheme they've got. and it's just kind of, I mean, bearing in mind it's just another Birmingham story, you know, like you were saying about America earlier. I mean, America's got the whole Florida man, we've just got Birmingham, the city, you know, a place that went bankrupt because it came to the realization that cleaners deserve the same amount of money as people that do different jobs or something. The city that can't empty its wheelie bins, and I don't think can empty its wheelie bins till at least March, which I think is when the strikes are continuing until, which is just boggling. And
it's gonna be pretty stinky there by March.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, you can go around some of the streets in Birmingham on Street View, and it kind of looks like it hasn't changed. But yeah, it's pretty grim. But yeah, and it's like, and the NHS has had this thing, and I think they were hoping to sweep it under the rug, but it has been picked up, where they essentially sent 40 million to this like random residential house. And I presume it's not just this woman. I presume that if she's supposedly working with some sort of Pakistani, some sort of fake doctor place in Pakistan, that there are Pakistani people involved in this too. But it made me think of that Minnesota thing that we saw recently in America, where they've got like the whole Somalian fraud thing. And of course, Max Tempers on Twitter was immediately digging into some of them here. And it kind of looks on preliminary searches, as with most things, that where in America you get fraud, where the people that have come to America are seeking to get money out of the state so they can go and buy nice, expensive homes, which was what some of these nurseries were. They were like these giant sort of, I suppose, several $1 million American homes that were masquerading as nurseries. But here, it just seems like the British equivalent of these frauds is always just a visa scam. It's like, even when we found one of these like Somalian nurseries, it was just a visa scam because nursery worker is on the skilled worker shortlist for the government to hand out visas to. You know, and here it's like 40 million to this address, but oh look, it's also just a visa scam. It's just it's just the same thing.
It's the NHS, which
Yeah.
you know, is supposedly the envy of the world, and yet no one copies it at all.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? The amount of like, I mean, I actually had someone that once said to me, like, oh, if you care, because I was talking about, they were talking about jobs that British people wouldn't do, and I was like telling them about fruit farms. They were like, if you care about it so much, why don't you go and work on a fruit farm? And it's like, at the time I was working on a fruit farm, I was a quality controller on like Britain's like fourth biggest fruit farm, and
I once worked picking potatoes.
Yeah,
on a
it's
farm.
surprisingly,
I've done
nice
those
and
jobs.
fulfilling work, to be fair.
It's extremely backbreaking as well if you're actually picking the damn things. And we were doing it by hand, by the way. But yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, and it's like, and then partway through the conversation, we got into the NHS, and the guy starts going on about how the NHS is the envy of the world, and how nowhere else has anything like it. And I said, well, funny you should say that after bringing up about the farm, but like all these Eastern European immigrants that work on the farm would sooner fly home and pay for private healthcare in their home country than use the NHS here. And they've all got like horror stories of like the one time, like there was one guy at the farm who'd had a heart attack when he was staying in his little caravan thing. And he went to the hospital, and then he like into the local A&E, and then he just almost died there because they just left him in a corridor. And when he got out of the A&E, because they were like, oh, you need to have this done, you need to have that done, he basically, him and his wife, they signed him out, and then they flew him home to Lithuania, and he got the operation there and paid for it out of pocket. They'd rather do that on bloody farm labourer wages than use the NHS.
You guys will, Adam, and you and the other panel people will remember the English girl who wanted to be a nurse only, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I suppose, maybe 3. And they weren't taking like white English nurse women. They just weren't taking them.
Yeah.
I mean, my local NHS authority is almost entirely, I'm not talking about like the actual people who, you know, I guess you're saying that work on like on like the lower like frontline levels, but even like in management, are entirely foreign. I mean, it's not even just like, you know, English managers and like nurses and doctors and junior doctors who are foreign. I'm talking about the whole system itself, and also you have like it's also a form of nepotism. I mean, like, I know for one, you have a doctor who has a cousin who works as a district nurse, and then so it's like even like a sort of a tribal nepotism that goes on within these local health authorities.
Yeah. Well, this is the
I
thing
mean,
as well. It's like it's. I mean that is the thing. It's the nepotism networks. It wouldn't be so bad if British people were like open-eyed enough about this stuff that we were also willing to do it. In that case, we would just massively outcompete these people. But you know, it's kind of the perfect storm where we all run around banging on about being individuals and living on merit, and you can't go a week without seeing a newspaper story about some celebrity who's like, I'm not going to leave anything to my kids, and then everyone in the office is like, yeah, too right, and it's like, okay, but like my local Indian corner shop has like changed hands like 4 times, and it's never had a for sale sign out the front. Like they know what's up, and we need to learn too.
100%, Adam. A little bit of self-interested nepotism is not a bad thing, actually, if it's used for Anglo-Celtic British people, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, nurses, doctors, you could say the same thing about engineers and all sorts of other good jobs that British people most certainly would do if they could get them.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think, you know, that well, there are charities out there. Like, well, there's one particular charity out there which I'm a part of, which we all know, where I wouldn't say it's nepotistic, but it's ideologically sound. The people in there are ideologically sound, and you know, we don't. We do gatekeep. I will be honest, we do gatekeep, but we gatekeep for good reasons, for the right reasons. And like these other
You've got to
institutions do.
gatekeep, William. You've got to gatekeep.
Yeah,
My
you have to.
Discord is a private Discord, and it's a private Discord for a reason. Like, if one of these chaps wants to invite somebody who's a friend, they can do so, but they have to vouch for them. That's how you join my Discord.
Yeah.
You don't.
Well,
we don't take randoms.
Well, no, because we had that one incident. If you remember, I right back along, where there was an invite of a person who wasn't sound, and yeah, who turned out to be a complete fraud and phony. And
I not only kicked him out, I kicked the bloke who invited him out as well.
yeah, and some people thought it was unfair, but no, that is just the reality. Because, and this is something I'm part of a lot of, like, I've been part over the years of my time with a lot of subreddits and MySpace group. Like, this is going back when I was a lot younger, for various different like things, you know, like hobbies and what have you. And I have seen how how quickly it could be taken over by well, how it's been taken over by people who distract from its original intention and dilute it and then change it and mold it into, you know, something that is inherently progressive and goes against its original function. I always use people. I was part of um, right back along. It was like a Star Wars fan group when I was a little lot younger, and I remember how quickly that was taken over by I mean, I will be honest, a lot of them were women who were incredibly left wing, and they changed the dynamics of it. Well, something that was quite, yeah, it was nerdy, it was very nerdy, very autistic, you know, like a very much autistic sort of space, and it was taken over by these women who turned it into some lovey-dovey left wing progressive, you know, sort of place to talk about contemporary politics.
You can have women in groups like ours, but you have to limit their number very severely and make sure you pick the women very carefully.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I do, I mean, with that instance, one thing, when you have large group of women, particularly in that Star Wars movie. The way they started their first line of attack was actually criticizing the masculinity of like particularly like the novels and of the films and what have you. They actually started criticizing the masculinity, and then from that on, they was able to manipulate the sort of weaker minds and then drive anyone else who had any interest, because then suddenly the conversation wasn't about the actual like fantasy or the or the stories or something. It just became, everything just became contemporary politics, and then everything became um talking about the various talking points of the day, and it lost its original purpose. And that has happened, and I can tell you now that's happened, not just that's happened in many other circles. I mean, that was the reason why something like the basket weavers, right, back along was founders, right, as a way of having a space for a group of people who couldn't be infiltrated or couldn't be you know uh, can be infiltrated by those sorts of people, and do that, and sort of, because what it does is it brings you in, it brings your niche subgroup into mainstream orthodoxy.
Yeah, you've got a gatekeep. I mean, look at the Tolkien Society. I know quite a few of the guys on the panel here are Tolkien fans, and Tolkien Society got totally taken over by lefty feminist women, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and it's disgusting. I mean, one thing that they love to do is they love their fan fictions, like homosexual fan fictions, lesbian fan fictions, and then talking about like applying critical theory to the Society of Tolkien. Having empathy. Do you know what? I've actually become. I will say I've really, really. I don't like empathy. I think. I've become like what would you say, like a maybe a bit of a Nietzsche in that regard, but I one thing I find is whenever people try and pull on heartstrings or pull on sort of empathetic sort of mentality, it really, I see red. I just see red now.
I
It's
think
too much.
empathy is good, but I think you should have it for your own people mostly.
It's a really recent word. It's like it's about 100 years old, but compared to like sympathy and other such words in that sort of sphere, it's actually a very recent invention.
Yeah, they're not surprised, to be honest. Yeah, not surprised.
I mean, my empathy goes as far as the victims of the grooming gangs, the so-called, in air quotes, grooming gangs. That's as far as my empathy really goes, for the most part.
What do you think about Max Payne Films question in the chat? He said, "What do you guys think of Nick Griffin?"
Yeah, I put that up. I was going to ask you guys. Go for it, guys.
I don't know. Tim Wilms, who's in your Discord, Duke, he's interviewed him, so people can go check that out and listen to him in his own words. But I don't know, like there was also an interview I remember watching of him done over the phone years ago with a guy. It was called like Crusade or something Crusade. It was on YouTube. I don't know. I've never been able to find it again, so I don't know if he took it down. But and it was, and he's a guy that was sort of at the top of British nationalism for a while, so he's kind of got interesting things to say and listen to. But like he also has this weird thing where he's like, oh, you got to run off to Hungary and join the Knights Templars, and we're going to come back and retake England, and some of his positions are very, very doom appealed as well. Like there's this particular thing he says where he's like, oh, people say about like 2066, but like by then the only English people left will be like old, and it's like okay, yeah, we understand how demographics work, but like that's not really quite the entirety of it. Like the British people could be reduced to 30%. It's not like a magic number. It's not like you hit 50% and then we all turn into primordial ooze and it's over. Like the British people could be reduced to like 18%. It's still it's still salvageable even at that point, even though it will just get progressively harder. And
it would
so
get harder. That's, I think, if we can start turning things around before it gets to a minority situation, I think that would be vastly preferable, and I'm sure you'd agree with that, Armand.
Yeah, I kind of think it's going to get to a point where, like, before this is entirely won, we will actually be of a minority status. But yeah,
But
it's
but the thing is, it won't be like the opposing different races and demographics. It's not like there'll be a majority. We'll still be like the largest group.
Yeah.
It will just be on the plurality level. So, you'll have hundreds of different races and groups. But yeah.
And all
Yeah.
those groups hate each other. And the only reason why they're able to work together in any synergy is because it's orchestrated for them through the British state. But of course, the British state is going to be very, very it's going to be incapable of continuing that when it gets to the point where it has very racialized. The largest minority is very racialized and is looking for people to represent them. That's it's going to be very, very difficult for them to keep that charade up.
I mean, not to do like the ultimate, maybe there's an ultimate maybe the horseshoe black pill theory can come back where I said, the ultimate black pill is like nuclear war. The horseshoe goes back to a white pill where actually nuclear war, then suddenly, America is once again 80% white. Britain is again like 90% white. you know,
Well,
even though like the population is reduced to about like 2 million or something like that in Britain, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, the thing is that, like, I mean, not to go back to that sort of Russia thing earlier. I mean, if Putin, there was gone about how like they're trying to like sell the idea that like Putin's got like a huge amount of strings over like Western media. If that was the case, he would be pushing the line. Like you'd see the line appear that Russia's in a bad position because it has America as an enemy, and the reason why America is a particularly rancid enemy is because it's the one place where if you nuke its cities, it gets stronger. It's but that line of attack never comes up. So yeah, that's obviously not true.
Yeah.
But
I mean, on the question of Nick Griffin, I've at the time when he was around, I found him interesting when I was back in school, but that was just because of like edgy teenage sort of mentality. I probably more than anything else. But I mean, the thing is, I don't know what went on, but from what a lot of other people seen, and maybe this is like maybe there was like some personal reasons, but I think I don't know if he was a good leader in the BNP. It seems to be that there were a lot of people, or there was a lot of people felt that he was gatekeeping, and a lot of problems that you've seen with the Homeland, without all the, I mean, minus all the bizarre gay stuff that went on there, but there seemed to be like similar behavior. And I know people like someone like Bowden. He did that speech where he referred to him as a wily fox because of the
There was a lot of infighting, William Granville, in the
there was
BNP back in those days. A
yeah,
lot.
and there was a panorama. I remember there was a panorama episode which looked at the inner workings of the BNP, and it showed Nick Griffin basically um, uh, basically like running a shadow. It was what was it described as, like a shadow party within the party itself, or something like that, where the treasurer wasn't really the treasurer, and it was actually somebody else who was a loyalist, because he had like various factions competing within the party. I don't know. I mean, Nick, he's always said that it was basically like Zionists that were put into the party to wreck it from within, and then UKIP came underneath. I am somewhat sympathetic with that argument, because UKIP did come in, and Farage, of course, does love to say, we destroyed the BNP. but I also think it could be both things. I think there was deliberate sabotage from within, but I also think there. I mean, and then also the media hit job. I mean, the media hit job in Question Time. If you actually look at the polling at that time, it didn't actually his performance of Question Time didn't affect the polling. The BNP polling was still going up among pollsters when they were polling the public. They were still going up, so that didn't really affect it. But I think what it was is that it was a mixture of actually how he ran the party, but also what happened within, and yeah.
Yeah,
Mitch.
I just think. Oh yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to ask Mitch if he had anything to add about Nick Griffith. That's all.
I don't really think of a guy, so can't say
Yeah,
I have much of an
best
opinion.
position probably.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. Adam, I'm sorry, mate.
Yeah, I just yeah, I don't know. Like, he's going to have a few interesting insights because he was sort of like around at an interesting time, and yeah, he's done a few bits of good work. But like, generally speaking, I just I think we've all kind of moved past him, and I don't know if he's just like, because he's going on this interview tour at the moment where he's going with like on like Muslim podcasts and stuff like that, and he's like slandering people that are in the right today, and it's like you're sort of looking at him and you're thinking, is this like a Richard Spencer arc where like he's sort of like trying to buy himself back in some way because he's become irrelevant in the sphere that he made his bed in, or is he just so blackpilled by his experience running the BNP as someone that was probably not competent enough to hold that party together, that he's just grown very bitter over the whole thing, and he's sort of taken that out on everyone now. Like, but either way, it's just not someone I think you really want to associate with too much with, beyond maybe just keeping the odd eye on what he says very occasionally.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I suppose if there's a theme for this week's episode, it's you don't punch right, because that doesn't do us any good. It helps our enemies. I don't totally agree with Steve Laws, but I 95% agree with him. And I think he's a good man.
Well, it's like another thing as well. Sorry, just quickly, that Nick Griffin was sort of doing was a few years back. He was like really throwing Mark Collette under the bus. Another guy I don't really think about or listen to or really care about that much, but like he was trying to imply that like Mark Collette had this like huge impact on like the downfall of the BNP, and it's like Mark Collette was like a really young and a really minor figure. Like he was like
he
was
was
the head of like the youth
he was the youth leader or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, the news. I think it was the News of the World at the time ran a story saying that Mark was tempted to overthrow Nick as to become leader of the BNP while he was like still in his early 20s, and that's sort of what led to that's what I heard from a BNP member, that that was one of the they honestly thought that there was going to be like some sort of coup and Mark would be put in there as the leader. But also, if you remember, Mark did the media tour where he was given more positive interview. Even that one where Russell Brand, do you remember that? It was like Russell Brand did that documentary where it was like a
bench
week
in the park that was really weird.
yeah, and then like Mark was like on the couch and Russell Brand like came down shirtless or something. That was there's just like really weird clips like that, and yeah.
Russell Brand and Mark Collette. No, there's a fault.
Rasputin and Modern Mosley.
Wasn't this in the same arc where Russell Brand had that homeless guy stay with him, and then the homeless guy went back out because he'd like rather live in the street than live with Russell Brand in his like fancy London apartment?
Well, Russell Brand is also supposedly a Christian now, but he seems to become more Christian the more allegations of sexual assault are thrown at him. But who knows? I like I say, I have no opinion on Russell Brand, to be honest. He's certainly not in our sphere.
The thing with Russell Brand and like many people is when you had the whole new atheist movement, he was he was like the biggest like he would sort of be like the atheistic spiritualistic sex guru thing, and now he does like the Christian sex guru thing from from that position. I mean when I say he is like British Rasputin, like, he is like a British Rasputin. For some reason he just exists in that sort of he has that sort of bizarre influence over the feminine mind. I don't know. I don't understand it fully, but
The
it's one of those things.
the only thing I'll say in favour of Russell Brand is I prefer him to Piers Morgan, but then I prefer almost anyone to Piers Morgan. So you know, that's about all I'll say. I think Piers Morgan is like filth, basically. Yeah, but I'm no fan of Russell Brand. I don't know. Mitch, did you have a first subject you wanted to bring up this week as we're coming towards the end of the stream?
I don't know how what was her name? Samantha Traggle or Samantha Smith, something like that. She complained to the BBC of all people about, oh well, Grok is like putting her in a bikini and all this, even though she literally post photos of herself showing a bust, pretty much. And now the government is using them as an excuse to go, okay, we're probably going to ban Twitter. And now she's crying wolf, going, oh, I don't want this. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of someone made a video who I follow, like a 10-minute video about this Grok stuff. And apparently the real thing that was happening with Grok is that your pedophiles, surprise, surprise, were using Grok to sexualize children. And that was the real issue that's going on there. I mean, obviously, the British government doesn't give a shit about that sort of thing at all. And anyone who thinks they do is a moron, given they allow the grooming gangs in Britain of real children rather than, you know, made up AI pictures.
Well, I mean, I get why they think it's bad and why it's harmful, but like,
it seems like
Grok has already
to ban it.
Yeah, it seems like
to ban it.
It seems like Grok has basically already done that. Like,
yes,
the moment you stop seeing like every woman get put in a bikini in their own comments by Grok was the moment that had sort of already gone. And you can actually ask Grok yourself. You can ask it what updates have been made, and it does have a pretty extensive list of stuff that's been done in like the last 2 weeks.
But what's weird? But what's weird is all the I was inundated.
Something's gone wrong with your sound, William.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
What was weird is my Twitter recently, in the build up to this, has become inundated with bot posting, right? And what you have is like some sort of I guess you could say like OnlyFans or porn account or whatever it is, and it would be like Grok put me in a bikini or whatever, doing in a pose, and then suddenly you will have regular people who I don't follow but appear on my timeline who also say the same thing, and then suddenly this became like a whole thing, and it seems to me that a lot of these people who go on to like politicians, like in their threads, like that, like MPs and activists and all everything, and say, "Oh, put her in the bikini," also seem to be bots saying this. So it's a bit weird, this one, because this one seems to be bots telling an AI tool to be doing it. So I don't know about this.
Yeah, I mean, all it seems to have reduced down to now is just my homies in our group chat every time we have a mild disagreement, telling it to put each one of us in a bikini. But just
listen. First of all, I agree with what Aaron Hook said in the chat there that I just put up. I mean, obviously that's true, but basically, there are probably 50 AI sites that will do exactly put anyone in a bikini. I mean, they'd probably put me in a bikini if they wanted to. God help them. But it's when OnlyFans girls do this, it's just laughable. I mean, you know, those whores put their own stuff out there. You know.
Mm.
So I don't care what they do to OnlyFans girls, quite frankly.
I mean, it's also
get
just
what they
kind of
ask for.
it's also just kind of stupid because it's like, first off, like, they have already legalized against AI. Like, if it comes to race stuff, it's basically a lobotomy victim. So
Yep.
like, they could just do the same with this. They choose not to. Seemingly though, as well, like, you know, there was a bunch of there's a thing where like the lefties will do the thing where they're suddenly like really harsh on crime, and they're all going like, I think people that make this stuff in grok should get the same punishment as people that actually possess child pornography. It's like, okay, well, that's just a suspended sentence. So
Yes.
and you know, these people are all like, what? And you're like, yeah, like even that referee, the Coots guy, he got a suspended sentence. They were going like, oh, it was one picture of a 15-year-old. It wasn't. One of them was category A, which is a toddler.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
He wasn't in possession of it, but he'd accessed it. And
Personally, I'd shoot those guys, but there we go.
Well, it's also Hugh Edwards, the BBC presenter as well. You know, he didn't he got, was it time served, wasn't it? So yeah, he never saw the inside of a prison.
William, look at the actual so-called, in air quotes, grooming gangs in Britain. Little girls as young as 11 were branded, gang raped, totally insulted, killed in some occasions, apparently. But this is all right. But yeah, let's go on about some
this is the
fucking
other thing,
chicken
of
and having an AI bikini photo, you know?
But here's the other big kicker, of course. It's like, you only have to go back about 6 months and you'll find prominent BBC producers and government officials talking about having like legally made like CGI or AI made child porn.
Oh, I remember
Specifically,
that.
specifically because they were like, oh well, if we just give the paedophiles child porn, it won't they won't feel the need to. And it's like, that's not how any of this works. Like, that's like, has everyone suddenly forgot how like porn addiction works, or how paedophilia comes around in the first place? Like, it's pretty well studied.
I mean, Morgoth last year, Morgoth was literally hunted down by paedophile gang.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like there are a lot of them in this country. There is a problem in this country, and I hate to admit it. I mean, yes, there is the Pakistani ones, which are the most prevalent ones per capita, but also we do need to talk about
there are homegrown ones. Yes, there are.
I think part of that is that we're very good at rooting out our own, but
no one makes excuses for them except for the Bias Brainwashing Corporation.
Grope not hate, Barndor said in the chat.
Yeah. Hope not hate. You know, one of their main guys just got done for that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, he's I wouldn't say Atsman. He is one of our own. Wink, wink, nod. Yeah. So
no, I know what you're saying there, Richard. Yes,
it's like, but it's like a nonce. It was once said. I think this is actually a bit of a myth, but it was once said that nonce stood for not for outdoor. It basically, you couldn't go out in the yard in a prison.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what
it
meant.
It's like, well, yeah, it's like, even if you go and watch that show, Adolescence, right, that Netflix show, it depicts in that, because the kid does this act and kills this girl at school. Like, the dad has his van vandalized, and in like a home-based car park or something. Like,
well, Adam, and the case I would bring up about this stuff is and it's one that Morgoth has brought up quite a few times and has written about, the Moors murders, for example, which were two British people, sadly, who were absolute sadistic monsters. But as Morgoth pointed out, they were so not normal their faces became, symbols of disgustingness.
Yeah.
Which has
people,
not
when I was a
happened with
kid,
the
which was only in
zooming
the
games.
90s, people were warning me about that. And that was like 30 years before I was even born.
Yeah.
People were
I
saying
mean,
to me, like, "Oh, be careful out
yeah.
there because there's people like that out there," you know.
I remember growing up, people would talk about, particularly the Bulger killers. You know, the two what was it, 10-year-old boys who were also English, who killed that toddler. Venables and Thompson,
Yeah.
and those people. And for people who don't know, that was a huge nationwide story that went on for a very long time. Because I mean, today it would have maybe one day in the news cycle, and it would by the next day it'd be forgotten. But
Yeah,
back then,
look at the grooming gangs. None of the individual cases get almost any publicity at all, really.
Yeah.
no,
And when they
the grooming
do, it's
gangs.
because a few people point it out. The actual individual cases get very little publicity, really.
It's very odd.
These people's faces are not plastered on newspapers for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time, which they certainly were in the case of the Moors murderers.
The weird thing about the grooming gang stuff is it's somewhat accepted as it happened, but also at the same time, it's also accepted in the minds of many that it didn't happen. It's this really bizarre sort of thing that sits within realms of reality. Like at the same time, obviously, yes, it happened, and we all know what really happened. But in the minds of millions of shitheads and liberals in this country, it didn't happen, and it's basically a right-wing dog whistle because of their own cognitive dissonance. It's a
Well,
I,
look
and
at William. Look at the guy from Southport, right? What was his name? Cabana or whatever.
Axel Cabana, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the first photographs that the mainstream British media were putting out of him when he looked like a little choir boy when he was about 10?
Yeah.
Rather than the monster that in fact he is, that he
And
looks
also
in his mugshot.
he appeared on a what was it, the that aid thing that goes to Africa, that was the BBC ran, and he was like in a trailer for a Doctor Who charity thing,
Mm-hmm.
in that as well, yes, and he used that,
Because he
sort
had
of
such a
wearing.
deprived childhood, William. Obviously, he's getting on BBC documentaries as a kid. He really was having a deprived childhood. I didn't get on any documentaries as a kid. Did you?
No, and you had all the various usual excuses that trauma of Rwandan genocide. Well, he wasn't born when that happened, so no. You also had like the Hitchens one about drug use. No. I mean, I know there's connections in some regard, but again, that's. I mean, fundamentally, what it came down to was, and the motive wise, I do believe that it was racially motivated against white people. I honestly believe that, even to this day.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. Listen. I lived in Africa for a long time. There are nice Africans, believe it or not. There are. I had Africans I regarded as friends, but they're not all of them by any means. Not all of them. And there is plenty of racial animus amongst those people.
Yeah, true. I mean, in Uganda, I was going to say, like, the Mau Mau, for example, has been like the classic, like, like the fanatical black nationalist group.
Yeah, or you could look at the Belgian Congo, another example. You could look at farm murders in South Africa, another example. Quite a lot of murders in America. There's a lot of racial animus around, and it's by no means mostly from white people to other groups. In fact, white people are less likely to be anti-other groups than almost any other group.
I'm gonna have to head off. I've gone past my my hard stop time.
Yeah, Mitch has also left us. This is what happens when you have working men on your stream audience. They have to go to bed at a reasonable hour. Although I feel sorry for people who have to work on a Sunday, I've got to say.
I only do it once a month, so.
Oh well, fair enough.
Anyway, good night.
I do it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Alan.
Thank you. I do it every weekend near enough. It's just that
I used to hate. I worked in a supermarket for a while. I managed a warehouse in a supermarket long time ago, like many moons ago in the last century. And I hated working the weekend. I really hated it.
No, to be honest, I hate it, but particularly this time of year when it's cold and dark and awful. And
you go to work and it's dark. You come home and it's dark.
Yeah. No. It's not the greatest. I mean, fortunately, tomorrow I haven't got that long at work, so it's been like a morning, but which is why I'm staying on here a bit longer.
Well, before I lose you, mate, let's do our entropy chats. The first one is from Rong Tao Wu, who quite often supports the channel. So thank you very much, Rong Tao Wu. $3. Doing my part to help. Good luck, he says. And thank you for that. Most appreciated, Rong Tao Wu. The second one is from Red Three Trees, and it's for $20. Thank you very much, Red Three Trees. And he says hello, and then he says, worked in my local pub on Exmoor. So that's your part of the world, anyway.
That's right.
Sorry, William. Worked in my local pub on Exmoor in 2001. If someone came in from just the country over, the county over, they were relentlessly mocked and called a blow-in and a foreigner by the locals at the bar. 25 years later, it is owned by... Wait a minute. 25 years later, it is owned by a gay couple, managed by Romanians and entirely staffed by third worlders. The speed of decline has been shocking. Well, William, you're the guy to address that because that's your part of the world. So what do you say to Red Three Trees?
I think I know which one it is, but I won't say because I don't want to get him into. But
don't dox yourself or Red Three Trees.
But I mean, yes, yeah. I mean, I'm up on Exmoor, Iron Duke. In that particular world, you had pubs which were dedicated to various hunting groups. So that would be stag and fox hunting. Now I know.
Sure. Yeah, I've driven across Exmoor several times. I used to like it because of the ponies and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and people, you would have people go up there and they'd follow the hunts, and they would watch it and join in with it. I mean, I will admit, I have been on some trail hunts. Wink, wink. And I've watched some hunts as well, other trail hunts, because that's what goes on there. But there are a lot of pubs. There's a lot of sort of hunting S1s. And what's happened over time, like most parts of West Country, is you have influx of people from London and other areas of the south, sort of metropolitan areas around Britain, who move down there, particularly those who want to have second homes. Cornwall was pretty much like the epicenter of this, but so is Devon and places like Exmoor. And it changes dynamic a lot. Some of the locals change their behaviors to accommodate them. Some don't, which is I don't like when they do that. And what you have in that example of like gay club, it's happened. And you have we've had Eastern Europeans, and now you've got Bob Marlians around there. It has changed the dynamic. I mean, it's quite because the way that it happens. First, it's like the shit libs, the sort of native shit libs, and then it's east, like the Europeans, the foreign Europeans, and then it's like the Bob Marlin. So it's like you can see like a progression of like normalization of it, where like if they just if they just airlifted people from Africa or something in there, it would be more trouble. But what they've done is they've sort of slowly normalized it through internal movements of people from like cosmopolitan metropolitan areas, who tend to leave those areas anyway after they've destroyed it by voting for parties, and then will come here and vote, green or what have you, and destroy the other uh, local communities down here. Um,
Yeah,
they
no,
really
look,
are. I
I
can't.
totally agree with you, but the thing that I think is noticeable about what Rudd Petrie said there, and I know it was true of many parts of Britain in the past, that you could come from the next county 30 years ago, and people would almost regard you as a foreigner. You know,
Oh, in
like
in
so,
Devon, I
yeah,
got a good story in.
you
I
could
was gonna
be
say
from Hampshire and go to Devon, and the Devon people would regard you as a foreigner, even though you're a county over, basically.
No, I got one. I've got one even better. Within Devon, you can be considered like a foreigner from one village to the other. We went to a village in our next village from in us in that's in like Torridge in West Devon, and we went to the pub there. And as soon as we walked in there, you had like all your regular locals. I was a child at this, and we just stopped there halfway because we were coming back from a walk with our dog at the beach, and my parents decided, well, we'll go back through this village. I won't give the name of the village because that it will be doxing, but it was go back through that village, and there was a pub there, or we'll stop and try it. Walked in there, and everyone sort of stopped and stared at us. It was very bizarre. And in the end, um, the person behind the bar, who was the wife of the landlord, wouldn't really say anything. And in the end, my parents just sort of grabbed me and the dog and stormed out there, and were like, "Oh, fine, well, we've not been here." And basically, because we weren't from the village or whatever, they sort of gave us the cold shoulder, and basically wouldn't serve us. I mean, they didn't explicitly say that, but you know what that was.
Yeah, I mean, look, even in London, you back in the, I don't know, 70s, 80s, you had local pubs where the guys who drank in that pub knew each other because that was their pub, in the middle of London. And there was another pub maybe 200 yards down the road that they never used, because that wasn't their local. There was a lot of that stuff, and obviously in a rural area with a village pub, that's going to be even more true, And I don't think there's anything much wrong with that, to be honest.
No, I mean it is strange because as I said, growing up in that part of like very much rural West Country, um, I didn't see any. You'd never see a black person. Growing up, I never saw a black person. I never saw an Indian. I never saw anybody who was even like other European white. Probably until the late 2000s, maybe like 2007, 2008, where you
And
would
you
like
also,
hear Polish.
and you never saw them in pubs anyway, William, because the subcontinental types don't tend to drink at all, and
No,
the black guys in London anyway had their own pubs they went to. They didn't go to
yeah.
other people's pubs,
I,
by and large.
I went the other day with a friend. It was his birthday, and we went for a carvery before Christmas, and we went to a pub which was has been there a while. It was uh, it's supposedly it was one of those pubs that was uh, built and founded by a veteran of Trafalgar. So, as we've talked about before, so there's a lot of naval tradition there. And when I went in there, every single person was white English. It was very noticeable. Everyone was like real locals and everything. and not a single person throughout the time meal we had there, whether it be at the bar or anywhere, was any of the new like Bob Marleyans or even like other Europeans or something like that. It was all white
I used
English.
to go to a pub in Cornwall, William, where they actually had a dock that could take 2 sailboats. And so you could pull your sailboat up and tie it up at the pub and then go for a couple of beers. You know, it was really cool.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah,
was a pub
yeah.
that was named after a famous frigate in the Nelson's Navy, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I think it was started by a petty officer or someone from that ship, like in the 1805 or something like that, and really cool. That sort of historical stuff. But of course, the English pub is almost dead now.
Yes, there's a place in Padstow where you have like cafes now, but people do pull up with they're like fancier yachts and boats. What was funny though is when we were, I remember one where somebody parked up their yacht at this this was in just at the entrance of Padstow, sort of like at the harbour, and a seal at some point must have jumped onto the boat, and so they sort of chased the family off the boat onto the dock.
Yeah, no, I've been in harbours in the West Country where there was a seal on the dock. You could go and watch him. You know, there'd be like fishing boats tied up and all this kind of stuff. Really cool. But yeah, but basically, as I say, the British pub is being destroyed. And the latest government thing, at some stage, we should do a history stream on British inns and pubs. That'd be quite interesting, I think.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
It would. I think that'd be quite interesting. But the new law that the government wants to bring in, whereby if you have half a pint of weak beer, you're not going to be allowed to drive. That's just going to kill pubs even more.
Well, if you look at it, the pubs also reflect localized traditions. I mean, for instance, in Lincolnshire, a lot of the pubs around there are called like the Red Lion. A lot of them are called the Red Lion, and it dates back to like forms of local history. A lot of I think up in Scarborough and in Whitby, for example, there's pubs that and names that are dedicated to Captain Cook, for obvious reasons. But also, as you said, that there are pubs that have I believe there's one in Plymouth that is a Lord Nelson, or there was one that was a Lord Nelson. I don't know if it's still there today.
I bet there's more than one pub in Plymouth called the Lord Nelson. Probably more than one.
Most of them, though, there was a lot of them pubs that were Francis Drake or just the Drake, for example. There was a lot of those in Plymouth and South Dev in particular.
There was certainly at least one pub in Plymouth called the Packet, and that's because the Packet post office ships used to go from Plymouth. The ships that carried the Royal Mail, they used to go from there.
One of the oldest pubs in England was actually in Exeter, and it was called I forgot what they renamed it sometimes, but it was known as just like they called it was called by some locals as the Hospital or the Hospitalis, because it was built in the 12th century, and it was used as an inn by the knights. Hospitales to when they would go on crusades and come back as like a stopping point and everything from the crusades. And unfortunately, it was burnt down several years ago when a building next to it, which was used by the local university, left some sort of printing machine on overnight, and it caught fire, and then it spread to the beams, the old beams next door.
Is there any chance the university was full of people of a certain Middle Eastern religion, and not the one that we sometimes go on about, the one that likes Muhammad? I wonder if that might have been due, because it seems there's quite a lot of churches and pubs get burnt down by those people.
I mean,
Surprisingly,
that is that is possible. I do think, though, I've always thought in that instance that if you I because I think it was orchestrated possibly by the local council to rebuild it as like a block of flats. It gave, because it was a listed building, it gave them the excuse to demolish, to rebuild it and what have you,
sure.
and
Sure.
change it. So yeah, it could be. Who
AI,
knows?
is there? We've been going for 2 hours 20 minutes, which is quite a long time. Is there anything you would like to plug that you have coming up, or your channel, or what have you?
Um, I think let's see. I mean, I'm going to be doing some streaming this coming week on my channel. I'm going to sort of try and do some regular whether it be streams or videos or pre-recording, something like that. So you always keep a lookout. I'm sort of on the topic wise, I think there's a few that I want to sort of cover. I want one thing I wanted to talk about was the uh the a normalization of cancelling elections, because I think that's going to be a thing that's going to be more and more prevalent in Britain. And I'm going to talk about how, the how people are going to respond to this, how it's going to be um, how it's going to be sold to the British public, and also I'm going to do like the opposite of what I'm going to say, like sort of been looking into, because I'm not going to so much like the whole punching right stuff, but I want to do like a bit of a deep dive into Zach Polanski and look at, because number one, Zach Polanski is totally astroturfed. I mean, that's beyond a shadow of a doubt. There's no organic originality, and I'm going to do deep dives.
Forgive me, William. Who is Jack Polanski? I've never heard of him.
No, Zach Polanski.
Oh, okay. Who you with? Okay, and
The Green Party.
oh, the Green Party guy. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about someone on the right. I was going to say I've never heard anyone on the right called that. Yeah. Well, I mean, the Greens are just basically watermelon commies.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was just going to do. I was going to do like a series on astroturfed individuals who will be, well, who will be people whose origin stories don't match with their official stories. There's one person who I've done. I might do a follow up for this, because I'll do look at his origin story. I won't mention his name on your channel though, because I'm not doing a punching right stuff on here. But his name rhymes with Conlinson, basically. So I think you know who I mean. His origin
Yes, I
went
know
from
exactly who you mean. Yes.
yeah, very little subscribers on his YouTube, very little influence, and then suddenly out of nowhere, um, a lot of money, a lot of subs, a lot of influence, a lot of invitations to various conferences in the UK and elsewhere, a wife, yeah, all these sorts of things, and
Marrying his dream girl, etc. Yes, I have. I've
uh,
seen something about this on
yeah,
X. Yes.
etc. Now, if I
I
compare
don't.
it
I
to
will just say, William, I don't know how true that any of that is, but I have seen some stuff about it. Yes.
yeah, and then and the way that I contrast it is if I look at someone like Nathan Hood, who is now, he is engaged. He's put that out there publicly now, so that should. Uh, but if you look at Nathan, if you look at his backlog of all his work, you can see that gradual build up in various different places where you can see this is how he got here. There is a clear, like, linear line of Nathan's past that you can track and everything, where
Well,
there
look,
is no astroturfing.
William, I'll just say this. Look, Nathan is still officially a member of my Discord. He has been on this stream. I'm not sure if it was this stream or one of our history streams, but I've streamed with him. And he's been invited far more times. I mean, the fact that Nathan Hood is not on this stream is not because I've not asked him, it's because he doesn't turn up when I do ask him. So, you know, I just point that out. But I do agree with you. Nathan's done a lot of work. Used to do a lot of work on Tolkien and Lord of the Rings and this kind of stuff. Now he's running the castle charity that you're involved with. But yeah,
And
I
like
mean, you know,
yourself,
Nathan, I will just say, is always welcome on this stream. I mean, you know, I've
Yeah.
asked him many times to come on streams. I can't like twist someone's arm behind their back and make them come on, you know.
No, I mean, it'd be great if we could get him on to talk about the Pendragon Foundation, in greater detail. I think it's just he's
listen, William.
yeah.
Please ask Nathan to come on, and we'll do a specific history stream on British castles that you can come and talk about the Pendragon Foundation on. More than happy to do that.
No, that would be great, and I think for him, he is. I mean, he has a lot of things going, and I know particularly from personal, he finds it difficult to stream at the weekend. I know that, so maybe that's why he is.
We do our history streams on a Wednesday.
Midweek, yeah.
Yeah. So listen, if you speak to Nathan, please say to him, look, if he wants to come on for a stream about British castles and really plug the Pendragon Foundation, I'm very happy to do that for him. No problem at all. I'd find that very enjoyable to talk about.
No, absolutely. But again, you know, as I said, that with him and yourself and others, your views and your opinions on things hasn't changed for over the last time that I've known you guys, which has nearly been about 5 years now.
It's
5-6 years.
Closer to 6 years. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 6 years now. Yeah, it's about 6 years now. And there are people out there who I've seen who've gone from classical liberal, liberalist, Catholic Zoomer, pagan, or something. They've gone through various very numerous arcs, and what have you. So I mean, no, I mean, Nathan has been consistent throughout, and so on, and so yourself and others, and also genuinely, you know, there are people, as I say, there are people who like to be involved with organisations, but don't like to put in the work, and that's one of the reasons why we at the Pendragon do the sort of gatekeeping stuff, because at the end of the day, and I will say this: if people are watching who want to get involved, I won't tell you how to get involved. You'll have to figure that out yourself. But if you do get involved, this isn't going to be like a fast tracking your way to having a show or things like that. This is going to be like work behind the scenes where there won't be like it's not going to be like the next Lotus Eaters or something like that. And what's good about that is the people who are there just for the the publicity will always quickly find themselves being will get bored of it and they'll go off and do the next thing or find the next like interest to follow.
100%, William. I mean, you know, we've been doing this for over 5 years now, and we've got, I don't know what, 2,300 subscribers, something like that. It's a lot better than it was a year ago, but it's still pretty small. And I spend about twice what I make on this channel. in terms of how much I spend running it rather than money we get in from super chats or what have you.
Yeah, and it's good when you
don't do it to make money unless you get some sudden backing from some unknown group, shall we say.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, you've had a great interview. I mean, I think you, if I was to look at your channel, Andrew, the highlights would be, the interview with Eddie Butler, for example. That was quite a good, important
I
interview.
want to get Eddie Butler on again, actually. But the thing is, these days he mostly does historical stuff about Jack the Ripper and things like that. So,
Yes, I say he does
which
a good
I
Jack the
also
Ripper
find
series.
interesting. I have actually thought that at some stage one of our history streams might be Jack the Ripper, and I'll get Eddie Butler on because he's a big time expert on that stuff.
Yeah, was it Proper Horror Show is also like big into the true crime stuff as well. But also, you've had Morgoth on several times. You've had Endeavours, and you've had who's the Horus?
We've had
Yeah,
Andy Nowicki. He's been on here a couple of times. Red Hawk's been on here. There's been quite a few people actually.
yeah. You've had have you ever considered getting Is it Aussie Pill? Who's the Australian Aussie Pill? Is it?
Yeah, it might be. I mean, I've had Australians on here, obviously. I should get Tim Wilms on again at some point. I like Tim Wilms. He's a good guy. He's a bit of a libertarian, but nonetheless, he's an Australian nationalist at the same time.
Yeah, and
like a real Australian nationalist.
You've also got the British Australian Society as well?
Yeah, the British Australian group have been on here at least twice, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, there are various people I'd like to get on this stream, but it's a bit of a, it's kind of like you need to get a certain audience before you get people coming on. I mean, I was extremely grateful to Morgoth coming on because there was no advantage to Morgoth coming on this channel because, he's a vastly bigger channel than we are, but he's been on here, I don't know, half a dozen times, to which I'm very grateful. But there are other people I'd like to have on as well,
I was very lucky because when I started my channel, it was during the height of lockdowns, COVID lockdowns.
Oh, we've also had Apostolic Majesty on here twice.
Yeah, yeah, and I got to know. I managed to get like a lot of. I had like a lot of interviews of people like Sargon, and during his like height, I guess you could say, of back in 2019, 2020. And that was just purely down to lockdowns, people being online on the Discord, on the social media and everything, 24/7 because there was nothing else you could do. And I was just by luck and dialogue, and that's how I got into contact with people like Pharaoh, and I got into contact with Nathan through that. I mean, Nathan I've known probably the longest than anyone in our circles, and then of course on AA's Discord, which I was a member of, and that's how I got to know the rest of people, and I think that's how I got. I think I first I think I found you, Andrew, through Ataman. I think that's how it happened.
Yeah, look, I try my best. If someone wants to join, you know as well as at least as well as I do, William, that like we've got a Discord of roughly 50 or so people, yeah,
Yeah.
but only maybe 7 or 8 of them stream really, but they all can. And you will have noticed that what I've started doing now is I don't even send out invites to individual DMs now. I just put it on the Discord. And so, because I'm thinking to myself, well, if I just put it on the Discord, then anyone who feels like joining could just join. You know,
Yeah,
I
and
used to send people a message saying, look, I've sent out DMs to people. If you want to join and you haven't got one, tell me. And that never worked. So now I just put it on the main Discord, on the main channel, and therefore anyone who wants to join can just click on that link, and there they are, they're in the stream. And I would like to get more people on, you know, I really would, because I think it's a good thing. You do need your regulars. Like, you know, I really couldn't run this stream without the likes of people like Adam and yourself and Mitch. But I do like to get occasionally other people coming on who people have not always heard from, because I think new voices and new views are always good, you know, given that broadly we're mostly going to agree on stuff, you know.
No, true, and you know, it's always good to, as you say, to get that sort of variation. One thing I hope with the Pendragon is one thing that has surprised me is that the people who are involved with it thus far have been genuine, you know, experts in this field. They're not. Well, what is the quality that I'm surprised with? Because one thing I always thought is, oh, you're going to have people who maybe have very little experience, will need a bit of training, possibly even be, you know, just attention seeking in like and for dramas and maybe problems. But to be honest, the gatekeeping, as we talked about earlier, has worked, and it's kept out a lot of the you know, the people the toxic types who cause problems on the right. And you know,
William, I'll tell you one thing that I have noticed, right? And you will probably know that I love like naval history, for example, and particularly British Royal Navy history. But the people who are the real experts on that, and I do vaguely know some of them, you know, wouldn't say I was friends, but I vaguely know them, and I occasionally exchange messages with them, and I might be in their discords. They wouldn't come on this show because we're right wing.
yeah,
And by that I mean they wouldn't even come on our history show because we're right wing.
yeah,
Do you get what I mean?
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
thing you're going to have, I suspect, with the Pendragon Society. You're going to have some of these people who do know about medieval times and medieval history and even medieval warfare. Some of these people are fucking liberals. They just small L lefty liberals, you know. There's a lot of them about, I've got to tell you.
Well, yeah, I mean that's true. When we did the Wellington project, right back along before that went off the rails.
Yes.
Right back along, we had if I remember, the Wellington project was contacted by another group which was dedicated to like the memory of, you know, the actual, you know, Duke of Wellington,
Sure.
Sir Arthur Wellesley, and their like interactions, which was I think it was on on like some Discord of themselves. You had like all this sort of like women and lefty, you know, beta looking men with their pronouns in their, you know, profiles. So this going back a while now, so you probably guess, yeah, this was during like peak woke era stuff. And they were actually horrified. They said like, these guys are Nazi, like they're referring to us. We're
Yep.
Nazis. We're
Yep.
you know, we're using the Duke of Wellington's name as a way of pushing some sort of ideological agenda, which I thought was quite funny coming from them.
William,
And
would you describe me as a Nazi?
no,
Because I'm not, you know. I'm like
I
I'm no great admirer of Moustache Man. I'm just not.
oh,
Okay.
well, I mean, I don't think you're not a National Socialist. I'm not a National Socialist. I don't think anybody. I mean, maybe there's one person in chat, who's a National Socialist, but by them, I don't think. No, we're not. Ideologically speaking, we're not National Socialists.
No, no.
We're just ordinary British nationalists. At the end of the day, we are ordinary British patriots, and yeah. So, but the thing was, it didn't matter. These people, as you said, that they. What's weird, what's weird is that they were obsessed with with not even, it wasn't even preserving Welles's memory. It's like some sort of revisionism um of him through and what's quite there was it's kind of like the Tolkien Society. What you had is they ended up like doing some sort of critical theory with Wellesley. Somehow,
Yep,
actually,
yep.
he they probably, I think they probably even argued that he was like a homosexual or something, or he had homosexual tendencies or some
What?
bollocks like that. So yeah, I'm not
What?
even kidding. Yeah, I'm not
He
even
was one
kidding.
of the biggest womanizers in British military history. What are you? What? Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. These
These
people were
people made
proper
me
mad.
sick. Like
Yeah,
Wellington was really well known, amongst other things, for having a great eye for the ladies. Even when he was getting on a bit, he still had a great eye for the ladies.
Yeah, yeah. These people were just absolutely mental, and yeah. That's who we came across, and um, we didn't bother changing our at the time. We didn't bother changing the name of the organization, um, even though there was some talk about it. I was like, well, no, because we didn't get a monopoly on that. I mean, yeah, anyone with like half a brain could see that they were but these people, what they did was they just like to didn't even talk about Wellesley. They occupied the space like of a group, right, a subgroup, and they gate kept people in and out. Like all the people that did the military reenactment were like these homosexual Labour, Green Party, Corbynista types at the time, and Corbyn was around
This
as
is
leader.
why. This is why, William, that when you're looking at your Pendragon society, boy, you've got to gatekeep that very strictly. You really do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, 100%. And if you allow one of those lot in,
They'll
all it
invite their
takes is one.
friends. They'll
Yeah,
invite their friends.
all it takes is one, and it will spread as a cancer.
Yeah,
And
you have to really ask serious questions, like, because loads of people are interested in history and military and naval history, but it doesn't make them right wing. It just doesn't.
well, you look at
Sadly, I wish it did, but it doesn't.
well, if you look at Tom Holland, if you look at Tom Holland, for example, who does who's like his thing is Roman history, and
Yes.
what he has done is he's used contemporary uh, politics and astroturf trends like BLM and what have you, and he's applied it to history in the real world in his works. I
Is
mean,
he the
Mary
guy
Beard
that
is
does? Is that the one that does the rest is history stream? I think that's Tom Holland, isn't it?
yes, it is rest is
Yeah,
history.
he's a
It's Tom Holland.
he's a terrible lefty liberal asshole, basically. But yes,
Yeah, I mean, he's recently done like a history of early Christianity, and it's I have to say, not talk about the theological point of view. It is littered with just inaccuracies. It's probably one of the worst researched one I've ever seen. Even Adrian Goldsworthy, who doesn't really talk about, he did a stream of a similar one a few months back, and even he managed to like get a fairly decent um
I like
in
Adrian. I
work
like
on it.
Adrian Goldsworthy. I'm a subscriber to his excellent YouTube channel. Adrian Goldsworthy, I'm sure, is basically a liberal, but he doesn't really try and bring contemporary politics into ancient Roman history, which I admire him for very much.
I think he might be, but he did let one thing slip in a stream of his, and it was about and he actually, I think he did a dig at Tom Holland where he talked about the contemporary politics being revisionized and included in Roman sources.
Yes.
And
Yes.
he did refer to that as a cowardly move by historians, and I
Oh
think that
yeah,
was
but
yeah.
don't forget, Adrian Goldsworthy wrote Colossus, which is a biography of Caesar. Whereas Tom Holland wrote Rubicon, which is basically a what's the right word? It's basically an assassination of Caesar.
Yeah, it's because Caesar was a destroyer of this great republic. I mean, Holland frames it as this grand republic which was going all hunky dory, and then Caesar had this horrible, like
Yeah,
vengeful, like sullen nature of wrecking the republic. And it's like, no, the republic was corrupt as hell. Pompey was misusing, the republic sources, and
for sure.
people in Rome hated they had the utmost contempt for the Senate and senators, and that's why Caesar was treated as a hero when he returned to Rome. He was treated as a hero.
Well,
Um,
also
I,
William, you have to look at they'd already had Sulla, they'd already had Marius. It wasn't like and also the two what are they called? I'm trying to remember now. The two Gracchi brothers who were murdered by senators, because they tried to do land reform and what have you. So it wasn't like Rome didn't have a fairly long history of this sort of bullshit,
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning that Caesar, the reason he crossed the Rubicon, was to save the Republic. He wanted to save Republic from corruption. He never had any intention of having a permanent office in the senatorial system. That was decided. I mean, that was literally thrust upon him later on after his triumphs. But the thing is, the actual collapse of the republican system happened because of his assassination, and you had the return of Octavian, where I mean he took up the mantle, like head autocrat, which is basically where emperor comes from. So he was like the autocrat of the Romans, and like so it was even beyond like dictator, where he didn't have to worry about an election. He was just the leader, but that all happened because of the Senate's own the senatorial class's own behavior, really.
And Caesar's mistake really
Well,
was
yeah,
that
yes.
unlike Sulla, he didn't kill all his enemies. He just didn't. Most of them he forgave.
Yeah, I mean, I think he thought that they would be in fear, that with his legions in Rome, with his supporters on the streets and what have you.
Well, yeah,
I think,
I think he also thought that his mercy would make them think, well, maybe Caesar ain't such a bad guy. But of course, that's not how humans behave, because there's sadly a bad side to many human characters.
Augustus didn't make that mistake, though.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
He was quite ruthless until he became the father of Rome much later on. Yes.
Yeah, and Augustus was the one that cultivated the imperial system and did away. I think it was quite funny because I think even Goldsworthy, I think his position is the emperor after Tiberius, who was the adopted son. It was under Tiberius where the republican system any recovery of the republican system just went. It was full on like imperium, Roman imperium.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, look, at some stage we can do a history stream on this. We've done Roman Britain before. I think we did 2 or 3 streams on Roman Britain.
Yeah, we did
If
too.
people
Yeah.
are interested in that, you can go and look at our Splendid Isolation history streams. We've done at least 2 on Roman Britain. But yeah, it's. I don't know. William, what's your channel called for people who want to go and look it up?
It's William Grenville, but it also is AI Shiratori. If you still put that in, it will come up with my channel.
Yes, it does. It does. And I'll put a link in later on under the description. Anyway, William, thank you very much for joining me. Also to my other guests, Adamant and Mitch, thank you very much. We will be back on Wednesday for a history stream. And it's a magical mystery thing because I don't know what we're going to be looking at on Wednesday yet. Hopefully someone will come up with a suggestion in the next day or so. All right,
7
guys.
Years Wars.
We could do that. We could do that. I mean, yeah,
We could
for sure.
do the Canada one, do the capture of French Canada.
Yeah, I don't know if we can do the whole of the 7 Years' War in one stream, but we could, because there's a lot going on in India. There's a certain amount of stuff going on in the West Indies. There's
that's why I was going to just like keep it to Canada and like just like the captures of
we could do it as
and Quebec.
the British conquest of Canada for sure. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, because as I said, I've been reading Captain Cook's diary during his time, and in Halifax.
That's where he first made his name, of course, William. He charted the St. Lawrence River, and he'd originally joined the Royal Navy as an ordinary sailor, and he got his promotion because he did such a good job of charting the St. Lawrence River, sometimes under French fire. So yeah.
Yeah, and he got to use the latest, was it I forgot what they called it, like charting equipment. I forgot what they call it now.
Yeah, he was a very
good
navigator. I mean, that's why he was put in charge of all these enormous exploration expeditions, which were kind of the 18th century equivalent of the moon missions, except the captain of that ship had to take a hell of a lot more responsibility because there was no radio or anything like that. So
and no, true, and maybe also a young George Washington would make an appearance as well.
I think he does. You think he does?
in
Yes,
this as well?
a
Yeah, he
young
does.
officer in the local British forces in North America.
The Virginia, what was it? The Virginia, I think it was the Virginian militia.
Yes. The Virginian militia when Virginia was a British colony. Yeah, he had
the Virginia militia.
he had King George's commission. He did indeed.
Yeah, served under Colonel Braddock, who was killed in an ambush
By the Indians as well as the French.
Yes, and Washington was one of the few that managed to make it out. Indeed.
But yeah, no, that would be an interesting subject, William. I'll happily do that if you want to come on Wednesday and do that. We'll do that.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm free Wednesday, so I can definitely do that. Yeah.
All right then, guys. Thank you very much. Let me just check. We haven't got anything else on entropy. I don't think we have. Nope. Okay, guys, I am going to try and play us out with a tune. Let's see if it works. Don't know if it will, but I'll give it a go. Bum, 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 bum. All right, let's see if this plays.
Let us raise the warlike lay, let paper drum the tune, in glad remembrance of the day, the glorious 1st of June, when British stars as of their wild did you renown obtain, and bravely proved their favored isle, still mistress of the main. Triumphant shall navies plow the seas from shore to shore, and France in future times know how to conquer as before, to conquer as before. And France in future times know how to conquer, to conquer, to conquer as before. Emerging from his bed on rocks, old Neptune eager arose, then steadily shook his briny locks to view the mighty foes. Then Gallia cried, the frowning god, detested be their cause, who rule the world with iron rod and break through freedom's laws. His foaming billows soon shall flow, be stained with heaven gore, and Frenchmen to their cost know how to conquer as before, to conquer as before. And Frenchmen to their cost know how to conquer, to conquer, to conquer as before. Defied this dread decree, resolved with labor and might, to win the empire of the sea, or perish in the fight. Tremendous then the battle raged, the waves seemed on fire, and dauntless ship with ship engaged, while fame did each inspire. Some struck while others, moving slow, to gain their native shore, proclaim that British stars know how to conquer as before, to conquer as before. Proclaim that British stars know how to conquer, to conquer, to conquer as before.
And that, of course, was the glorious 1st of June, commemorating Lord Howe's great victory at the glorious 1st of June, a Royal Navy victory over the French. And there were so many of them that if you were to list them, you'd need a 50-minute stream. But yeah, good. And that was from Patriotic Archive. Now, Patriotic Archive is a friend of mine. He's a member of my Discord, and he's got great naval and military music, mostly, and also folk music, mostly from Britain, but also some European stuff as well. Go and check him out. Thank you again to William Granville and my other guests, Adam and Mitch. We will see you on Wednesday for our history stream, which looks like it's going to be about the British conquest of Canada in the 7 Years' War. And in the meantime, don't let the bastards grind you down.